mama's name, child? What's your mama's name? Does she ever mention a town called New Orleans? What is up? Has she ever mentioned a man called Buford Will? Hold on a second. Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, where the hell you are, whatever the hell you're doing. Why aren't you turning on? I specifically wanted you to turn on. That's plugged in. That's plugged in. Troubleshooting. It's Boomer Story Hour. That wasn't really plugged in. That's plugged in. There we go. We're cooking with butter. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? Of course you haven't. Put that up there. All right. You never subscribed. Okay, so we're going to watch Dumb and Dumber here. I trust everybody knows what's going on. I trust all of you have I know. I keep DMing Guadalupe about why she keeps not sending me nudes, and all I get back are peeled avocados. It's slightly disappointing. I only say slightly disappointing because, I mean, have you ever fucked a peeled avocado? I'm just saying, like, don't knock it until you've tried it. So we're gonna watch these guys. I'm gonna let them get a little bit ahead because honestly, the sound of their voices irritates the ever-living piss out of me. I personally don't understand how anybody can watch my channel without watching me in without watching me at least 1.5 times speed, if not 2 times speed. So I think I've prevaricated long enough, and we're going to go ahead and get into this. Strap in, motherfuckers, with a picture of a naked man's ass, I guess.
We don't want to be recorded, so is your... Playing now. Playing now. Live from CBS Sports 18.
What says that?
Okay, I'm going to call the police, okay?
Should I mute you?
You have to take it out in the lobby. So
No, that was me. I'm sorry.
If you need to. I mean, are you retarded?
Yeah, that's the lobby. That's a
Sir,
lobby.
What's your name and title, ma'am?
I make me sound like a chipmunk too, to be honest with you.
Hey, it's 3 o'clock, Mike. Or at least my time. It's time to start.
Yeah, all right. So they called all the armed men with guns
minutes
to come get me today.
Here, I got a name, so we know that. So while we're waiting for Dumb and Dumber, let's see. We're going to go to youtube.com. We're going to go to BZ Watchdog. See if that comes up. Here we go, BZ Watchdog. We're going to go to his community. Show this tab instead. So this does appear to be a legit response to a FOIA request. Just FYI, this does appear to be a legit response. So I am less skeptical of the document that he says was the response from the post office. I'm less skeptical of it. Let's see what we got here. What do we got here? What if watchdog? Are you Mad Dog now? Lol. That's a huge B word. Heart and 100. 100. Got new members. There's 12 comments. Is he hiding comments or is it just okay? It's just one of those YouTube-y things. Let's just one of those YouTube-y things. All right, back to this. Back to Dumb and Dumber. Yes, it's not gay unless you make eye contact. A lot of appellate work. He has one published case, I believe. No, it's not. I don't even think it's published. I could find one appellate case that that he is the named attorney. No, wait a minute. There were some Ninth Circuit cases that he got named in. There was some. He was suing some people, and they were suing him over legal fees. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd really count that to be appellate work. I think he was like named in those as a defendant party, something like that. Bunch of lawyers suing each other over who owes what for lawyer fees. All right. But I wouldn't actually like say he does a lot. I did this one case. It was a CEQA case, CEQA case, and the developers were represented by a guy. I want to say his name was Moose. It was something like Moose. Anyway, that dude had done dozens and dozens and dozens of appellate cases, and he'd made it to the Supreme Court. I mean, he did a lot. Ehline, I would not characterize as having done a lot. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Well, isn't that crazy? I wonder what old BC Watchdog's been looking at. Hey, buddy. He's trying to bash me on the channel over there without sniping Chili's channel now. Am I retarded? Like, does that mean something? Does that mean something? Am I missing something? I'm going to go to your channel. I'm going to go to here, your channel, and I'm going to try to find you, and I'm going to make sure that you are actually the go-to channel. Go-to channel. That's the actual BZ Watchdog. He's trying to bash me on the channel over there without sniping Chili's channel now. Post my comment and actually steal the slides. Well, all right. Anyway, shouldn't you, BZ Watchdog, shouldn't you be like doing things on with Ehline right now?
Requests with the U.S. Post Office. And so I wanted to share with you today some of the things that we discovered. But before we get into it too much, I just want to get into a couple of things.
So just so everybody's aware, by the way, BZ Watchdog, someone was making fun of a car salesman today. I think it was Kaiser said someone like would be perfect for being a car salesman. Guess what BZ Watchdog does? So we have federal criminal law applies a USPS. Postal power may not be used in a manner that abridges freedom of speech or press. Sweet. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Because we have a lot of people throwing out a bunch of red herrings and sea lawyering and just nonsense. And so I wanted to just really quickly help you to understand a few things. So
what is sea lawyering? I don't know what sea lawyering is. Maybe I'm not smart enough.
Apparently, there's like a really big red herring out there about whether or not a post office has been declared a federal enclave, that somehow that will make a difference in the enforcement of federal regulations. And so
No. See, already we're getting in the weasel. It's not in the enforcement of federal regulations. Can the state enforce state law in the post office? I've been clear about it from the beginning. Can a state trespass you under state trespass laws from the post office? Isn't that how we got onto this? Somebody's playing fucking move the goalposts again. Somebody's being a little less than honest. Somebody's lying. Somebody's lying. The state law enforcement don't enforce federal law. State law enforcement don't enforce federal law. State law enforcement enforce state law. The question is now and has always been, can the state enforce state law, i.e. trespass, from a post office? And the answer to that question is, that fucking depends. That depends. It always depends. It depends on whether or not the U.S. government has asserted exclusive jurisdiction over the post office. That's what it depends on. No one ever said, I have never said that the state enforces federal laws. Never. Never.
Just so everybody knows, by the way, hey, thanks, Willie B. Thanks, Alabama Gump. Hey, Brick, what's going on? Thanks, Emmett. Thanks for...
Like, how stupid is his audience that they don't realize this bait and switch? They don't realize that he was talking about X and now he's just talking about Y.
showing up. And Willie B, late. We're late. No, we're not late. We started.
I don't really care if it helps your channel or not, BZ Watchdog. Like, I'm not against you. Really, what I am doing is I'm using you to teach people. You're just a tool for me. I mean, you're a tool in general. You are a tool, period, full stop. But I'm just using you as a tool to teach people. Like, I understand that I'm not Josh, right? I'm not trying to make your channel go away, dude. I don't give a shit about your channel. In fact, if you go back into my channel, you'll see that I've done post office audits. At least one. I've done two. Done at least one. I don't go at it from the same angle as you do, but I support your right to film in public. I don't think that people should take offense to people recording in a post office. And I think that like, not assholes recording not assholishly can record pretty much at will just about anywhere. And so I have recorded outside of a jail. I have recorded in a courthouse multiple times. I've recorded in a post office. I've recorded outside of a sheriff's office. I've recorded outside of a police station. I've recorded a lot of places. So if you think I'm here to take down your channel, I'm not. I'm here, hopefully, to get through that giant fat skull of yours and maybe help you understand that you're not safe from state law, that the police officers, you remember in this video, post office audit fail. Remember that one? Those aren't federal law enforcement officers. Those are Texas law enforcement officers, probably city police officers, maybe sheriff, maybe they have constables down there. Don't know. Don't really care. But they're state licensed law enforcement officers, and they're there talking about trespass. So who's talking about them going in to enforce federal law? Not me, not you, not Ehline, at least not until today. But it's a whole case of move the goalposts. We're going to do this too. We're going to copy, and we are going to paste as plain text, and we are going to pin message. There we go. So I'm not here. I don't care about your channel. I mean, you know, if you're not selling enough cars to make ends meet to feed yourself, because I understand how expensive that can be. You know, it doesn't bother me, dude. Like, go ahead, you do you. I don't really care. I'm not here to take people's channels down or anything like that. I'm here to educate. I'm here to educate people on what the actual law is. That's it.
Channel, as you know, I am Michael Ehline. I am a California and Texas attorney. I do personal injury law, civil rights management, and we have a lot of people throwing out a bunch of red herrings and sea lawyering and just nonsense. And so I wanted to just really quickly help you understand a few things. So apparently there's like a really big red herring out there about whether or not a post office
And he's the one who's throwing out the red herring, not me.
Has been declared a federal enclave, that somehow that will make a difference in the enforcement of federal regulations. And so just so everybody knows, by the way, hey, thanks, Willie B. Thanks, Al.
But see, he thinks he's slick, and he is lawyer slick. He's reframing the question. He's reframing the question. Like, he doesn't even give a fuck. He doesn't even give a fuck that he started off showing state law enforcement officers at the beginning who were trying to enforce state trespass laws. He doesn't even give a fuck. He's changing it now.
Alabama Gump. Hey, Brick, what's going on? Thanks, Emmett. Thanks for showing up. And Willie D, late. We're late. No, we're not late. We started on time. What the heck? Why are they saying we started late?
We started late. It was like 1 minute, man.
Oh, man. Oh, no, dude. Emmett Neely, thanks for coming, buddy. I really appreciate you coming again as usual. So good having you guys here. Superior video and photography as always. I dig it that you're here. So just really quickly, understand something. So what we have is, when it comes to federal properties, federal buildings.
No, Rodent. It was 3 o'clock. So that would be first supper, I think, for BZ. It's after lunch. Maybe it's second supper for him. Maybe it's supper for him.
Their post offices are exclusively governed by the Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, and so as a lawyer, somebody who's done a lot of cases against government agencies, whenever it's a government building, I just call it an enclave. It doesn't really matter for purposes of this conversation what you call it, because whether or not the federal government has exclusive, proprietary, or concurrent jurisdiction over a post office, the only time it being a federal enclave would matter is for purposes of things like property disputes, title issues, things like that would have to do with the property. The enforcement of criminal regulations within a post office is exclusively and solely governed under the Federal Code of Regulations. And the only time that the only time that a law enforcement agent.
Yeah, I mean, except. As BZ Watchdog has so kindly pointed out, except State versus Graham, 47 North Carolina App 303 from 1980, state has exclusive jurisdiction over criminal offense occurring in post office. Although federal government operated post office, record did not reveal had exclusive jurisdiction. And remember, folks, for those of you who are unaware, this is the North Carolina Defenders Manual. So it's for public defenders, and they're talking about federal enclaves. Although North Carolina ordinarily has territorial jurisdiction over crimes committed, in some instances federal law displaces state jurisdiction. So this is talking about crimes and State versus Graham. I mean, it's pretty fucking clear. State has exclusive jurisdiction over offense occurring in post office. Although federal government operated post office, record did not reveal that it had accepted exclusive jurisdiction. So Michael Ehline, Michael, are you going to actually show us, you stupid fuck? Are you actually going to show us a case that says in the USPS only federal law can ever be applied? What is this? Like, what is this short snippet say? The postal power may not be used in a manner that abridges freedom of speech of the press. What does it say? Like, really, what is it telling you? Nothing. It's nothing. He's like a sovereign citizen. He's pulling a very short snippet, not even a full sentence, out of a case that has nothing to do with enforcing criminal law in a post office, and he's posting it up as if it means something. Yes, under their logic, if you slap someone in a post office, if the postal inspector doesn't come and arrest you, or another federal law enforcement agent doesn't come and arrest you, then you can't be arrested because the crime would have been committed in a federal enclave. Right. So Vince, you're mistaking some things. There is no federal trespass law, just so you know. There are specific federal trespass laws that are specific to certain situations. If there is a trespass law that's specific to that certain situation, like there's a trespass law that's specific to military bases. There's trespass laws that are specific to the White House and where the president and vice president are. Yes, and I'm familiar with US v. Waits. US v. Waits was an instance where the federal government had filed charges against Waits. We covered this yesterday, and you were here. You must have been too busy diddling your own butthole. But the federal government filed charges against Waits. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to incorporate state trespass law. It was the federal government charging weights, and they were trying to incorporate state trespass laws. And the court said you can't incorporate state trespass laws if there is already a law in place that would cover the bad act. And in this particular case, there was already 39 CFR 232.1, whatever subdivision it was. But that was where the federal government was charging someone in federal court. This isn't where a state is charging someone for a state crime in state court. It's entirely different. But thank you. Waits was where they were talking about the Assimilation of Crimes Act. Oh shit, you can't see what I'm looking at.
I'm sorry, the only time that a law enforcement agency, from my understanding, would have the ability.
Look, he's got me. BZ's got me playing down there. He's got me showing up. That's fucking hilarious. I'm like the ghost that's haunting Chili's stream forever.
To cite you outside of their own jurisdiction would be under the Assimilation of Crimes Act under 18 U.S.C. 23. You outside of their own. And the only time that the only time that a law enforcement agency, from my understanding, would have the ability to cite you outside of their own jurisdiction would be under the Assimilation of Crimes Act.
See, that's again, he's fucking retarded. So what the Assimilation of Crimes Act does is it allows in a federal enclave, it allows that federal enclave to adopt essentially the state laws that are necessary to maintain that particular federal enclave. For example, if you go into a national park that is the exclusive jurisdiction of the federal government, and they have park rangers that patrol it. If you speed in that federal enclave, if you speed in that park, there's no federal speeding law. There's no federal law that covers speeding. Even though they have speed limit signs placed around, there's no federal traffic law that would apply. So when the park ranger pulls you over for speeding, he cites you under the state speeding law. The federal enclave assimilates the state law to cover that particular act. DUIs, things like that. So, and in Waits, they were trying to assimilate a state trespassing law. It doesn't let the federal officer go outside of their jurisdiction. It doesn't let a state officer come in and enforce it. It is where a federal officer is going to enforce what would normally be state law in an area where the federal government has jurisdiction, because there is no federal law on point.
Under 18 U.S.C. 23, I think. I'll have to look it up. But the bottom line is, just really quickly, under the 14th Amendment, we're all entitled to notice an opportunity of any charges or any issues against us. And when you walk into a post office, what you see on the wall is poster 7. And it specifically says that this building is governed solely and exclusively under the code.
That's really fun. So yes, under the 14th Amendment, you are entitled to due process, right? Notice and an opportunity to be heard. But that doesn't mean that you have to have all laws posted. I mean, just think about this. Think about this like a normal person. Wherever you go, it is illegal to commit murder. They don't have to have a poster up on the wall wherever you go saying it's illegal to commit murder. Like, I don't even understand what he's talking about here. Notice and an opportunity to be heard. Notice, the notice that you're going to get is the citation, is the criminal complaint, is the federal indictment. And the opportunity to be heard is the fucking court trial. And he's an attorney.
Code of Federal Regulations. And because of that, you are going to be trespassed under a federal law. And because of that...
No, you're not. You're going to be trespassed under a state law. Unless it is a federal enclave, in which case they can't trespass you, as we've learned from Waits. It has to be done under the 232.1. And the reason they wanted to use the reason why they wanted to assimilate the state trespassing law in Waits is because the sentencing under the 232.1, 39 CFR 232.1 is minimal. It's like something like 5 days in jail and like a $500 fine. It was something ridiculously low. And so what the AUSA, the assistant U.S. attorney, what that guy wanted to do is he wanted to assimilate the state trespassing law because it has a bigger sentence, a heftier sentence. So that's what he was doing.
Unless the local police agency has an interagency or interjurisdictional agreement, they have no legal jurisdiction to cite
Unless it's not a federal enclave, you dumb shit.
you for a local violation of a local law. The only
Unless it's not a federal enclave.
thing they could do, and we'll talk about this in a little while, is assist the federal post office or postal security service in making the arrest. And
You notice this entire time he's had a single citation up. He's not shown you any case law. He's not gone over 40 U.S.C. 3112. He's mentioned 18 U.S.C. 23. Let's look at what 18 U.S.C. 23 is. That's not what he's looking for. The assimilation is in here. We looked at it yesterday. Somewhere in here. What is it? Maybe it's not. It is. There we go. 18 U.S.C. 13. Laws of states adopted for areas within federal jurisdiction. Whoever within or upon any of the places now existing or hereafter reserved or acquired as provided in Section 7. So on a federal enclave, that's what this is referring to, because Section 7 was the federal enclave. Or on, above, or below any portion of the territorial sea of the United States not within the jurisdiction of any state, commonwealth, territory, possession, or district is guilty of any act or omission which, although not made punishable by an act of Congress, would be punishable if committed or omitted within the jurisdiction of the state, territory, possession, or district in which such place is situated by the laws enforced at the time of the act or omission, shall be guilty of a like offense and subject to a like punishment. So what they're saying there is that, like, for example, because there's no federal trespass law, if you trespass, so if you trespass, like, let's say, for example, there are military barracks, right? On a military base, there are homes, they're private homes that are owned by people who are in the military, but it's on base property, and so it's in a federal enclave. Let's say that somebody, not a person in the military, goes onto the property of someone else, and that person tells them to get off my property, but they decide to stay there. They could get charged under state law for trespass unless there is a federal law for trespass on point. That's what it's saying. This isn't rocket science. Congress hasn't made infinite laws. They haven't made all of the laws that a state would make because they don't really deal with that shit. And it was just easier for them to hand wave it away and say, we'll just adopt the state laws for this federal enclave, except that, any laws that Congress has made is controlling. And then if there's no congressional law on point, then state law applies. Frequently. How often is that, Ehline? How the fuck often is that? Oh shit, you're not watching what I'm watching.
the only thing they could do, and we'll talk about this in a little while, is assist the federal post office or postal security service in making the arrest. And frequently, local law enforcement agencies do assist the federal government in making arrests of this sort. So let's take a look. Hey, Britt Jonesy, thanks, man, for showing. Everybody give me a bunch of FCs for free chili. And also, DZ Watchdog brought his cop cards today, I think, in his trifold. And we're gonna talk a little bit about trifolds and cop cards. And again, I don't have to use them because I have my own local laws and things like that memorized when I deal with law enforcement.
He has them memorized, except he fucking doesn't, because he's just swinging and whipping all over the place.
But not everybody is going to have access. They may freeze up or go bananas. So we'll talk about that as well as part of this. Why it's helpful to have a guide. I'm not saying it has to be this particular thing, but honestly, if you take a look at the way BZ has used them to help him learn and remember things, that's a good thing. And so, by the way, everybody, BZ Watchdog is here with me today, and I wanted BZ just to sort of give me a little introduction about what he did to make this video. Because guys, man, he went over the top. He did public records requests. Go ahead and tell us the process, how long it took, and everything you went through to get this video made for us.
Well, before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that we are being stream sniped because somebody doesn't know the law very well. That's why we're going over it again today. Just let you guys know right there on video who that was. Always trolling us. I love it. So go ahead and wave. I see you on your snipe. But I just want to go over this since they didn't want to show my whole video and they took everything out of context and tried to do this. We're going to actually cover the video in full detail today. But as far as in the poster 7, I believe you have that going up. You got a slideshow prepared for us today.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is have Mike actually cover the slideshow just to show that we're not getting the wrong information out there to the public, which he's doing right now, sniping on his channel, which is why we're covering this again and making sure that people get the correct information because we wouldn't want anybody to get disbarred or have any kind of complaints. So we're going to make sure that we follow, since we've done the research and the homework.
Oh, please don't get me wrong. I am absolutely 100% not worried about getting disbarred or getting complaints. Absolutely not worried. I mean, what's he going to say? He's going to say what? John corrected my misstatements of the law. Like, are you retarded? Like, are you on? So here's the problem. Here's the problem. You got to look at these guys. Like I showed in the very thing that BZ Watchdog put up, I showed that a post office does not necessarily have exclusive federal jurisdiction. I showed that in the very thing that he put up, and he's ignoring it today. He's ignoring it. So what does it mean? Does it mean that he doesn't understand, or does it mean he's lying? Which is it, BZ? Do you not understand, or are you lying? Are you intentionally misrepresenting the state of the law to your audience? Isn't it weird?
And when I'm out there, boots on the ground, messing with the post office, then I'm actually staying compliant within these guidelines, rules, law, statute, whatever you want to call them, all the way down to the local level. So with that being said,
so BZ Watchdog is staying compliant with all the rules down to the local level. So BZ Watchdog understands that he can get trespassed. What are we arguing about then? What are we arguing about? BZ Watchdog just said, let's listen to it again.
Actually staying compliant within these guidelines, rules, law, statute, whatever you want to call them, all the way down to the local level.
He's staying compliant with all the rules, law, statutes, and everything down to the local level. He admits, like, case closed, problem solved. There's no more argument. There's no more argument. He admits you got to be compliant down to the local level. Does he is he stupid or is he lying?
So with that being said, Mr. Mike, if you wouldn't mind covering this from a lawyer's perspective.
No problem. So really quickly, analyst is saying, what is the context of what we are watching? And so analyst, basically, this is the issue. The Code of Federal Regulations allow the public, the news in particular, to go on to post office property for the purposes of photographing, taking images and things like that. And some people say that it's a non-traditional public forum. Some people say
except when prohibited by security personnel or other authorized persons, official signs. I forget the entire list, but except when prohibited.
that it's a non-public forum altogether. And so there has been.
Did he just figure out it was public and not traditional?
Taking images and things like that. And some people say that it's a non-traditional public forum. Some people say that it's a non-public forum altogether. And so there.
Oh, he figured it out. He figured it out that it's well, he's still using non-traditional public forum, and that's fine, I guess.
Has been jurisdictional splits between different courts. And so this is an issue that makes it right for me as a lawyer and a constitutionalist to talk about, because there are no real bright lines.
What is a constitutionalist? Is that something you anoint yourself with? Is that something you anoint yourself with? Just like you anoint yourself with constitutional law scholar?
Rules on some aspects of how we deal with the post office and exercise our First Amendment rights. So, but we do know for sure that the postal power may not be used in a manner that abridges freedom of speech or press. So we know that.
What does that mean, though? Like, what context were they using that in? That's half a sentence. That's half a sentence. That is half a sentence. Let's look it up. Let's actually inspect what we expect. That is United States Postal Service, the Council of Green, BURGH, Civic. That should be enough. Title 18 USC 1725 prohibits the deposit of unstamped mailable matter in a letterbox approved by a United States Post Office, and violations are subject to a fine. The local postmaster notified Appellee Civic Association that his practice of delivering messages to residents by placing unstamped notices in the letterboxes of private homes violated 1725, and advised that if it and other members of the Appellee Council of Civic Associations continued such practice, it would result in a fine. Appellees then brought suit in the federal district court against the Postal Service for declaratory and injunctive relief, contending that the enforcement of 1725 would inhibit their communications with local residents and would thereby deny them freedom of speech and press secured by the First Amendment. The district court ultimately declared 1725 unconstitutional as applied to appellees and the council's member associations and enjoined the post office from enforcing it as to them. Held, this is what the United States Supreme Court held. Section 1725 does not unconstitutionally abridge appellees' First Amendment rights, inasmuch as neither the enactment nor the enforcement of 1725 is geared in any way to the content of the message sought to be placed in the letterbox. And he even lied. Go fucking figure. So he's citing page 126. 126. So this is, we know probable jurisdiction to decide whether or not it does unconstitutionally abridge, right? Now we're on page 126. Here's page 127. This is the actual site. This is actually what the fucking Supreme Court said. It said, however broad the postal power conferred by Article 1 may be, it may not, of course, be exercised by Congress in a manner that abridges the freedom of speech or of the press protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. So that does this citation even exist anywhere in here? Postal power may, it does not. This citation that he is claiming, is a fucking lie. It does not appear in United States Postal Service versus Council of Greenberg Civic Associations. He is right here, he's fucking lying. He's a liar who lies. Michael Ehline is a goddamn liar. Michael Ehline, you are a piece of shit liar. Fucking sue me for defamation. I don't give a shit. You are a liar, Michael Ehline. This right here, if you did this in a court, you could get sanctioned, possibly, depending on the circumstances. That fucking language does not appear in United States Postal Service versus Council of Greenberg Civic Association. It does not appear there. You are a fucking liar, Michael Ehline. You are a fucking liar. You can't even put shit up on the screen that isn't a lie. Like, holy fucking shit. I am kind of beside myself. I am a little bit perturbed. I have to admit, I'm a little bit perturbed. It is appalling that he wants to win an internet beef so fucking bad that he's willing to lie about what the cases even say. He's willing to lie to you, to me, to his audience, to fucking everybody about what the fucking cases say. Holy shit, dude. Holy shit. Michael Ehline's a fucking dirty, shitty liar. You are a dirty, shitty liar, Michael Ehline. Fucking sue me for defamation. You are a dirty, shitty liar.
Doesn't exercise our First Amendment rights. So, but we do know for sure that the postal power may not be used in a manner that abridges freedom of speech or press. So we know that.
We know that because he fucking lied about it. Let's look up. Let's make sure that this fucking language is in US v. Waite. All right. Okay, so this language actually fucking appears. So congratulations. Now, is it on point? No, it's not on point. It's not on point because in this particular case, it was the federal government. Let's go through it. Let's go through it because he's not going to, so I will. Right? He's not going to go through it, so I will. So first of all, you can tell that this was a criminal case brought by the federal government and not a criminal case brought by the state government because the appeal is in the U.S. Court of Appeals, Ninth Circuit. Now, as we've already learned, and apparently Michael Ehline didn't fucking understand, is that you could only appeal a state case to a state appeals court. If it gets appealed to the Ninth Circuit, that means it originated in a district court. So let's go through it, right? The question for decision is whether the Federal Assimilated Crimes Act, as interpreted by the teachings of the Lewis v. United States, permits application of the Oregon criminal trespass statute to certain conduct committed within a U.S. post office. Appellate Vincent Earl Waits contends that his conviction and sentence for a misdemeanor violation of 18 U.S.C. sections 7.3.13, trespass in a federal facility, were infirm because the magistrate judge, that'd be the magistrate judge in the federal district court, invoked the Assimilated Crimes Act and applied Oregon trespass statute instead of applying Part 232 of Title 39 Code of Federal Regulations. He's a homeless man, blah, blah, blah. In the district court, that would be the district court, the federal district court, the government, the United States government, charged him with 4 counts of violating the Assimilated Oregon trespass statute. Oregon doesn't have to assimilate its trespass statute. Oregon has a trespass statute. At the trial before the magistrate judge, he timely filed a motion for judgment of acquittal in which he challenged the sufficiency of the evidence. His motion for acquittal was denied. He was convicted in breach, blah, blah, blah. The magistrate judge, see, you could tell he had jurisdiction pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 3401. The district court had jurisdiction pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 3402. These are federal statutes that give federal courts jurisdiction over federal crimes. We have jurisdiction pursuant to 28 U.S.C. section 1291. That's how the Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, gets jurisdiction over district court appeals. The appeals were ruled timely under Rule 4 Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure. This is all federal court, right? So what it was is so the big deal is right in here that in Oregon, secondary criminal trespass is a Class C misdemeanor, which carries a maximum prison sentence of 30 days and a $1,000 fine. Violation of 39 CFR 232.1 D or E results in a fine of not more than $50 or imprisonment of not more than 30 days or both. So I was wrong about the prison time, but it was a minimal fine. So what they were doing is they were trying to go after the bigger fine, make it a bigger deal. He would have argued that they had failed to post Title 39, 232 Code of Federal Regulations as required. Okay, so they have to post it. Phenomenal. But that's what's required by 39 CFR 232.1. So it requires that it's posted. So they were persuaded that appellant's conduct was punishable under Section D, and because of that, you can't assimilate it. And so here's the language that he was looking at: a state punishing conduct on federal property will only be will be assimilated only where it's not precluded by postal regulations and where the state law does not punish approximately the same conduct as the federal law. Here, 232.1D punishes approximately the same conduct as the Oregon trespass statute, namely remaining on the premises after being lawfully directed to leave. So it won't be assimilated because there's no gap here to trigger the operation of the non-abrogation clause. And to hold otherwise would be to rule that the non-abrogation clause of subsection P2 would have the tendency to trump every relevant federal statute. We do not perceive this to have been in the intent of Congress, yada, yada, yada. So I hope everybody understands that. If you don't understand that, the CFR is poster 7 verbatim. That is incorrect, sir. you have made a factual misstatement. Poster 7 is a rough approximation of the CFR. I went over it yesterday. You must have been busy jerking off. But we can go over it again because apparently people are slow. People are slow when you're a slow person. When you're a slow person, you're very slow. This is the relevant one. We're going to make it bigger. Wonka wonka. Wonka wonka. 39 CFR 232.1. Wonka wonka. 231 when you're a stranger. All right. So photography for news, advertising, or commercial purposes. You can see it starts off with except as prohibited by official signs, right? Just easy peasy lemon squeezy. Here's poster 7. It does not start off with except as permitted by official signs. So it is a rough approximation. Rough. I know you like it rough, Vince. I know you like it rough, Vince. Rough. All righty. Back to the stupid people and the liars on Michael Ehline's channel. Shall we?
And then under U.S. versus Waits, basically the only way, and this is a Ninth Circuit case, and I briefed it so. So basically under this Assimilation Act, this law that was written basically to help, I guess, the federal police enforce laws when they don't have a similar federal law and charge it as a state action. The problem is you cannot use the same or similar state law to enforce a federal law. So for a local law enforcement officer,
you can't use no. See, he doesn't even understand that. You can't use a state law under the Assimilation of Crimes Act or the Assimilation of Crimes part of 18 USC section 13. You can't assimilate state laws if there is a federal law on point. You can't assimilate state laws if there's a federal law on point.
to go on to federal property like a post office that's exclusively governed under the Code of Federal Regulations, exclusively governed under the Code of Federal Regulations. Should we say that a few more times? Not state law.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. So going into Waits, let's go back to Waits. Control F, ENCLAVE. So this has to be, this post office has to be a federal enclave. So how do we know that this was a federal enclave, or do they just know it? Let's look it up. So the Astoria Post Office was built in 1847. 1847. And let's go to our teacher of the law. This is BZ Watchdog. And what does BZ Watchdog tell us about the dates? For property acquired right here, for property acquired before 1887, and the Astoria Post Office was March 9th, 1847. So that's before 1887. The type of jurisdiction depends on the language of the Legislature's Act giving consent to the federal government to acquire the land. Okay. So it would depend on the, well, it was established before Oregon was a state. Hold on a second. This one says 1933. Who do we trust? Who do we trust? So let's go back to this one then, 1933. 1907, 1940, the federal government has, all right, so the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction. Well, there you go. There you go, folks. Thank you. Thank you, BZ Watchdog, for giving us this material. I'm not closing it. He's a dirty fucking liar. All he has to do is not cover shit and lie about it. Candy covered dates? I don't know what you're talking about. Candy covered dates. Who's Candy? I don't see anybody in here named Candy. All right. Okay. So yeah. So in weights, what do we know? It is the Astoria, Oregon Post Office. That's what we know. It's the Astoria, Oregon Post Office. Astoria Post Office, right? There's the Astoria Post Office. We know that the Astoria Post Office was constructed in 1933. And we know that property acquired between 1907 and 1944, the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction. So it would be a federal enclave. And so there you go. There you go. Federal enclave. See how it works? You can figure it out. You can figure it out. All right. What are we doing here?
Particular case, if local Texas police come on and charge you with Texas trespass, that would be improper based upon my understanding of the law. Now,
well, no, because the Astoria Post Office was specifically built during a time when the federal government would have had exclusive jurisdiction. If it would, again, every fucking lawyer knows the answer to the question, does the federal government have exclusive jurisdiction, is it depends. It depends. Why is that so fucking hard? Why do stupid people love bright line rules? It depends. It depends. It depends on when the federal government acquired the property. It depends on whether the federal government asserted exclusive jurisdiction over it. It fucking depends. Why is that so hard?
Let me just really quickly make this disappear. And so basically, if it punishes approximately the same conduct, as in this case, it was an Oregon trespass statute, normally remaining at a post office premises after you were directed to leave. So it's pretty much on point. And to hold otherwise would be to rule the non-average.
See, the problem is that you can't explain, under your theory, you can't explain why in State versus Graham in North Carolina, the state found that it had exclusive jurisdiction over the offense in the post office. You can't explain why in Adams versus U.S. You can't explain why the United States Supreme Court found that it did not have jurisdiction over acts of sexual assault against ladies perpetuated by several gentlemen on Camp Campbell or Fort Campbell or whatever the hell the Camp Claiborne. He can't explain why this case exists. He can't explain how Adams versus United States exists. It completely destroys his narrative, and he has to just not address it. He has to say, no, I will not address it. How gay are you, sir? How gay are you? Right. Yes. Except it was, well, sure. That is correct. Jasper Kalin is correct. If the federal government has concurrent jurisdiction, then the federal government can bring a cause of action under the Assimilated Crimes Act. I don't see why it couldn't. So sure. And just so everybody's aware, Jasper Kalin is an attorney. I've verified that he's an attorney. He is an attorney. Isn't it weird that I have like attorneys who are saying that I'm right, and Ehline has BZ Watchdog saying that he's right? Isn't that fucking weird?
abrogation clause would have a tendency to trump every relevant federal statute. So the court did not perceive this to have been the intent of Congress to make that law. So, and then this is an excerpt from Poster 7 at the post office itself. So we, the people, under the 14th Amendment, have the right to rely on the notice that we're given. So when we walk into a post office, this is what we.
Why is he looking at Poster 7? Again, Poster 7 is a motherfucking poster. Where is he looking? He is looking at penalties and other law. He's looking at penalties and other law. I want you to notice down here, he has not highlighted this. I want you to notice this. He has not highlighted it. Can you see my? Yeah. Nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state or local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Is he going to address this section? Nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state or local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. Will he address that? Will he address that? I don't think he will.
We see this big poster, and this is an excerpt, and it says all violations of these rules are to be heard in federal district court by a federal magistrate in accordance with applicable court rules. Okay, and it says enforcement. Security force personnel will exercise the powers under 18 U.S.C.
He completely skipped it. He completely fucking skipped it. He just it doesn't fucking exist. Doesn't exist. Completely skipped it. What a shitburger. What a lying shitburger. He read it. I assume he read it. But it says it right there in black and white.
361 sub C sub 2. And it also says on the next couple lines down that basically the way that they can get local law enforcement involved is to enter into agreements with state and local enforcement agencies. Now, I've actually had a couple cases like this in San Francisco a couple of years ago, which we settled. But these were the primary arguments that you cannot have local law enforcement coming on here enforcing trespass laws on a federal property.
He had cases like this in San Francisco that he settled. Now, a case like this is going to be a criminal case. It's a criminal case. If you settle it, that means that you accept a plea bargain, a plea deal. If you have a case like this, a criminal case, where your concern was that the state was trying to enforce state laws in federal jurisdiction, then you settle it, you agree the state had jurisdiction. If you take a plea bargain, you have agreed that the state has jurisdiction. If it was a federal case, you'd be able to find it. You'd be able to go into, he said San Francisco. That's, what is that, Northern District? I think San Francisco is Northern Central District or Northern. No. It's Northern District, right? U.S. District Court, San Francisco. It's the Northern District. So, boys and girls, if you want to blow your little dollary dues on Pacer, you would actually be able to go in to the Northern District Pacer, and you would be able to look up Michael Ehline, Michael P. Ehline. You'd be able to look it up, and you'd be able to see all of the fucking cases that he represented criminal defendants on, and you'd be able to see the various criminal complaints that were filed, and you'd be able to see all the motions that he drafted and filed challenging jurisdiction. You'd be able to see any outcomes of it. Now, I spend a lot of money on Pacer, so I'm not going to do it, because I'm just going to say that I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it. If he was challenging it, if he was in San Francisco Superior Court for the County of San Francisco, State of California, and he settled it, i.e. he took a plea, that means that he accepted that the state had jurisdiction. If he was in the federal court, well, then it's on PACER and you'd be able to find it. It would be on PACER and you'd be able to find it.
It doesn't matter if it's been declared an enclave or not, because that's really something that would have to do with landlord-tenant issues. Or
it absolutely does matter if it's been declared a federal enclave or not. If it hasn't been declared a federal enclave, then the state has power over it. This would be a federal enclave. Federal enclave. That right there. If it's not a federal enclave, then the state has power. If it's not a federal enclave, then the state has territorial jurisdiction. But no, it's not. Literally, no, it's not. The very fucking poster that you showed, nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate. That means to overrule or otherwise make inapplicable any other federal laws or regulations or any state or local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. The only way you get to a point where state law is not enforceable in a post office is if it's in a federal enclave and the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction. That's the only way it happens.
it says otherwise. I mean, tell me, law's an art. It's not a science.
I have been telling you, and you have been ignoring it. And your fucking boy BZ posted something that should have been screaming at you how it works in a specific situation. State versus Graham, where the state has exclusive jurisdiction over the offense occurring in the post office. If you didn't fucking ban every motherfucker who tells you you're wrong out of your chat, maybe, just fucking maybe, you would know about any of this. If BZ had the intestinal fortitude and the spine to actually say, you know what, why don't you directly address John's arguments? Why don't you directly refute John's arguments instead of dancing around it like a fucking ballerina? Why don't you say 40 USC 3112 doesn't apply? This North Carolina Defenders Manual is wrong. Adams versus the United States has been overturned. Why don't you do that? Oh, you fucking can't. That's why you're a little bitch ballerina dancing around it. Where is he reading this from? Oh, right here. What is he? Where is he getting this from? Like, did he just type this shit up? Did he just type this shit up and put it with no citations to anything? Who says that? Where is the citation from? He just makes up fucking slides. He just conjures shit out of fucking, oh, you can't see it. He just conjures shit out of the fucking thin air.
Federal property. It doesn't matter if it's been declared an enclave or not, because that's really something that would have to do with landlord-tenant issues, or maybe like mineral rights issues, things that have to do with the property itself. But the enforcement of criminal laws.
He has absolutely no citation for this. He has absolutely no citation for this. Why? Just type it next time. This is hashtag citation needed. He's just making shit up right now. He's just making shit up. He's making it up. He's typing it on a card to give it the illusion of being authoritative, but he has no citation to authority. He has no basis for saying this.
On the post office is exclusively governed under the Code of Federal Regulations. Now, if you've got evidence or information that says otherwise, I mean, tell me, law's an art. It's not a science. So, the bottom line is a federal enclave is just a parcel of land with specific jurisdictional arrangements granting exclusive concurrent or concurrent legislative authority, while a federal building, which is what these are, is a structure used by the federal government in its operations. And for criminal trespass purposes, I spelled that wrong. It should say for. It's treated essentially the same as a federal enclave. Because again,
well, see, he's admitting that he fucking just wrote that. He just wrote it. God fucking damn it. Oh, I can't show PowerPoints. God damn it. I can't show PowerPoints. I'm not smart enough. Can I do this? I have no slides. I'd have to make slides. Sorry. I'd have to make slides. And I'm not going to make slides. But I could, in theory, make my own fucking slides.
The Code of Federal Regulations govern.
I could make my own slides that say different shit. But he's just lying. He's just making shit up. He's just lying, Michael Ehline. See, he says, I don't fucking know if he has a law degree. I honestly don't know. Like, I just don't know. I know he claims that he got a law license without graduating from college or law school. He says that he got a law degree after getting his law license, but he's never shown it. And I am unaware of any Juris Doctorate program that would allow you into it without having an underlying bachelor's degree. So, I mean, I just don't know. Like, none of it makes sense to me. He may have a law degree, but it's obviously not helping him. Whatever it is, it's not helping him. That's all I'm saying.
And the Assimilated Crimes Act doesn't have the power to subsume with a state statute the federal criminal trespass statute. And that's why a lot of people who get charged.
It does have the power to assimilate, not subsume, you dumb shit. It does have the power to assimilate a state trespassing statute. It just doesn't have the power to assimilate the Oregon trespassing statute in a post office because there is a federal regulation that is on point. Another state's trespassing statute may be different enough to allow it to be assimilated. You don't know. I mean, you'd literally have to go through all 50 states and look at all of their different trespass statutes and rule off each one of them to see whether or not they could be assimilated in a post office specifically.
Charged with local trespass violations by local police on federal properties usually get the cases thrown out, or we beat those on demur.
They usually get the cases thrown out?
A lot of people who get charged with local trespass violations by local police on federal properties usually get the cases thrown out, or we beat those on demur.
He beats them on demur. Just so you folks are aware, a demur says that the document, the complaint on its face is invalid. It's like a 12B6. It says that if everything stated in this complaint were true, there still wouldn't be a basis for which relief can be granted, right? That's not how you would defeat. That's not how you would defeat this kind of jurisdiction. You would have to show, and a court could probably take judicial notice of it. You'd have to show that there was exclusive jurisdiction. That's how it would have to go. You'd have to show exclusive jurisdiction. That says exactly what you have been saying, a specific jurisdictional agreement. You said that. What it is missing is the other situation of when and how the property has been acquired. Sometime in some cases, there needs to be a jurisdictional agreement. In some case, but like everything in the law, it depends. And if the land was acquired during specific time frames, the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction. So sometimes it requires a specific jurisdictional agreement. Sometimes it's just when it was acquired.
We file a demur and I'll get it thrown out because it's like, what? Like, what is this? There's no jurisdiction here. So
yeah, judge is like, what is this? There's just no jurisdiction here. Yeah. Show me, dude. Fucking show me one. Show me one. All of a sudden, this guy who doesn't know his asshole from his elbow about this topic, suddenly he has dozens and dozens of cases involving state laws being used to trespass people from USPSs. Fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. Let's select courts. Let's select courts. Let's go to Texas. Federal enclave. Let's see if we can get a post office in there. Nope. Texas doesn't have it. California doesn't have, at least that I could find in Google Scholar. California doesn't have any state or any cases specifically on point. But we still have, thank you, BZ Watchdog. We still have State versus Graham. For those of you who missed it, State v. Graham, 328, no, 47, 47 NC app 303. State versus Graham. Criminal Law 17, crimes committed at post office, jurisdiction of state courts. The courts of this state had jurisdiction over crimes of breaking and entering a post office and larceny of property therefrom, where the record does not show the federal government has accepted exclusive jurisdiction over the post office property in accordance with 40 U.S.C. Section 225. $255 or $225? $255. Where were we?
criminal trespass laws on post office properties are actually supposed to be enforced because the United States Postal Inspection Service has primary jurisdiction over postal property trespass. So
So he's going to run into the weights problem here. And again, this is going to be the it depends case, because 232.1 subdivision D and I think he also said H. No. Hold on. What was weights? What was weights? US v. Waits. What's your mama's name, child? What's your mama's name? E was the disorderly conduct, and D was the so D and E. So D and E, these two are the two that in Waits in the Ninth Circuit, not necessarily in every circuit. These two were enough to be substituted essentially for trespass, and would preclude the Oregon trespass statute from kicking in. So the problem with this criminal trespass laws is there aren't criminal trespass laws on post office property that can be enforced by USPS postal inspectors, USPIS. USPIS, according to Waits, can't assimilate state criminal trespass laws, and there are no federal criminal trespass laws on point because remember, these don't say anything about trespass, conformity with signs and directions, and disturbances. What if there are no signs and directions, right? Etc. So this is, again, him just talking out of his ass.
Criminal trespass laws on post office property are enforced by the United States Postal Inspection Service. The USPIS is the federal.
So he's literally just writing these fucking things, highlighting words that he wrote, and reading them as if they are authoritative. How fucking stupid is that?
Law enforcement arm of the USPS and criminal trespass postal. So in cases involving criminal trespass, postal inspectors have the authority. Postal inspectors have the authority to investigate, apprehend, and refer for prosecution. And I cite some cases there. I can't tell what C something USC 3061. Was it 18 USC 3061? What do you think? What the hell happened there? 18 USC 3061. Subject to subsection B of this section, postal inspectors and other agents of the United States Postal Service designated by the Board of Governors to investigate criminal matters related to the Postal Service and mails may, that's permissive, not mandatory, serve arrest warrants, make arrests, carry firearms, blah, blah, blah. Powers granted subsection A, this part, shall be exercised only in the enforcement of laws regarding property in the custody of them, property, blah, 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 to the extent authorized by the Attorney General. C, Post Office. The Post Office may employ police officers for duty in connection with the protection of property owned or occupied by the Postal Service, or under the charge and control of the Postal Service, and persons on that property, including duty in areas outside the property, to the extent necessary to protect the property of persons on the property. So those police officers will have the power to enforce federal laws and regulations for the protection of persons. So these are their employing police officers, right? I guess like off-duty ones. Carry firearms, make arrests without a warrant. They'll have these powers. And as to such property, the Postmaster General may prescribe regulations necessary for the protection and administration of property owned or occupied by the Postal Service and persons on the property. The regulations may include reasonable penalties within the limits prescribed by subparagraph B for violations of the regulations. The regulations shall be posted and remain in a conspicuous place on the property. A person violating a regulation prescribed under this section shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for not more than 30 days or both, right? And so what are the regulations that they've prepared? These are the regulations, and these regulations state that they can enter into agreements with state and local law enforcements, but it also says that nothing contained in these rules shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state and local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. So really what Ehline has to do in order to really win
in this is Ehline has to show a United States Supreme Court case that says that even in post offices where there is concurrent federal jurisdiction or no federal jurisdiction, that only post office regulations will be enforced in those areas, which would be weird because if the federal government has no jurisdiction, then you would assume that a CFR, a federal law, a code of federal regulations is a law. You would assume that if the federal government has no jurisdiction, then that federal law would not apply. You would assume that, obviously, but I guess you'd be wrong. But that's what he'd have to show. He'd have to show a United States Supreme Court case that overturns Adams versus United States. He has to overturn, he literally has to overturn Adams versus United States. He has to overturn Adams versus United States. So, in Adams, I just want to remind you, in Adams, they wanted to enforce federal regulations. They could not, or federal law. They wanted to enforce federal law on these people who are violating federal law. Just like Ehline wants to enforce federal law in an area that is not an enclave where there's no jurisdiction. And Adam says you can't do that. That's literally what Adam says. The answer to question 2 is no, i.e., the district court does not have jurisdiction. And the answer to this one was yes, that no jurisdiction exists in the United States to enforce the criminal laws unless and until a consent to accept jurisdiction over such lands is filed on behalf. So the federal government has to have at least concurrent jurisdiction, right? Yes, and that's the holding in Waits. Waits said that D and E, disturbances and conformity with signs and directions, is similar enough to trespass, to the Oregon trespass statute, that you can't assimilate the Oregon trespass statute. You have to charge under these and not the Oregon trespass statute. That's what Waits says. Oop, you didn't see that. That's what Waits says right there.
Postal inspectors have the authority to investigate, apprehend, and refer for prosecution. And I cite some cases there in the statute. Federal law says I can film with no permission. Again, this is Poster 7. This is the CFR as well. This is 39 CFR 232.
It says here, except as prohibited by official signs. He doesn't have that highlighted. That's fucking weird. Or the directions of security force personnel or other authorized personnel or a federal court order or rule. Okay.
2 sub 1 sub 5 sub I and a couple other ones I can't see. But basically photographs for news purposes and advertising even, or even commercial purposes, it looks like. And it basically is saying except as provided by law, or the instructions of security force or authorized personnel or a federal court rule, you can take news photographs at the entrances, lobbies, and foyers or auditoriums that are used for public meetings. And other photographs may be taken only with permission. That would be like where you go, like you showed me earlier, a picture of a chain link fence with barbed wire. Right?
Yeah. So what he's like completely glossing over is the whole part about if there is a federal, or if there is an official sign that prohibits it, you can't film. If there is if a security force personnel directs you not to film, you can't film. If authorized personnel directs you not to film, you can't film. If there's a federal court order that says you can't film, then you can't film. If there is a rule that says you can't film, then you can't film. But if there's none of those things, then in specific locations, you can film.
I think, well, yeah, that's a restricted area. So, time, place, and manner restrictions obviously would apply. You'd have to get permission.
So Joey, right now, he is citing to 39 CFR 232. He even has the citation wrong. He has 232.15. It's 232.1. You would think that he'd be smart enough to actually cite correctly to it. Fucking, it's 232.1. 232.1. And then he says 5, but it's not. It is H. No. It is 4, 2, 1. It is H. So he can't even, he is so fucking incompetent that he can't even do that right. It should be 39 CFR 232.1 H5 little I. Incompetence.
So that's an example of a time, place, and manner restriction where, yes, it's a property of we the people, but it's a restricted.
Is that a time, place, and manner restriction? I don't think that's a time, place, and manner restriction. I think that's a reasonable restriction on filming. I think that is a example not of time, place, or manner restriction. Time, place, and manner restrictions is like Ward versus Rock against racism. That's the quintessential. That's the everybody cites to it case. Ward versus Rock against racism, where they're playing a concert in Central Park, and there are laws in place about how loud you can play the music, and those are reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And what that language is relating to is normally you can't restrict speech in a traditional public forum, except you can have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions in a traditional public forum. Time, place, and manner restrictions, they have to be reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. They have to be content neutral, and they have to be narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling government or a significant government interest. So time, place, and manner restriction is shorthand, like reasonable suspicion is shorthand, like probable cause is shorthand. It's a shortened way of saying we're dealing with a traditional public forum. Normally, you can't restrict speech in a traditional public forum unless it's a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. And a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction has to be there has to be a significant or important government interest. It has to be narrowly tailored to achieve that significant government interest. It has to leave open ample alternative means to communicate, etc. So it's shorthand, and he's so dumb he doesn't understand it. Like if anybody starts talking to you about defamation and they start talking to you about actual malice, if they ever think that actual malice means that you actually have to have malice, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Actual malice means that you're making a statement that is false while you know it's false. That's actual malice. Or where you should have known it was false. Reckless disregard to the truth or falsity. That's actual malice. Not whether you say something false but you're mean about it. That's not actual malice. It's whether you say it knowing it's false or with reckless disregard as to the truth or falsity.
Area. So yes, we have access, but we need some additional permission because there's always a balancing test between a compelling state interest and a compelling private liberty interest, right? So that's the kind.
There's always a balancing test? Boy, you're in the wrong fucking field of constitutional law there, son.
Things that I want my people to understand. Now, criminal conduct on federal property is governed under federal law, guys. And so
unless there's concurrent jurisdiction or unless there is no federal jurisdiction over it, in which case it's governed by state law.
The 39 CFR applies to all real property.
And you even just talked about the Assimilated Crimes Act, which assimilates state law.
Property under the charge and control of the Postal Service to all tenant agencies and all persons entering on such property, regardless of whether or not they've been declared an enclave. And the way that they would do that is to basically.
It doesn't say whether or not they're declared an enclave. It doesn't say that.
File something or by operation of law within that state, something like taking exclusive jurisdiction over the building. Now, I argued in my other cases that by occupying the property, that enough was under California law enough for the federal government to assert exclusive jurisdiction.
Well, is it enough just to occupy the property? Let's go back to our good friend BZ Watchdog. And what did he post? A federal enclave is a building or geographical area within a state that is under the control of a branch of federal government and over which the United States government has declared jurisdiction. It is not enough just for it to be under the control of a branch of federal government, because if you remember in Adams versus United States, the sexual assault happened on a fort, Camp Claiborne. So the federal government had control over the area. And yet still, the United States Supreme Court, which in case you didn't know it, is usually more correct than Michael Ehline, said that it wasn't enough. It said specifically that the federal government had to accept jurisdiction over such land as provided in such act. Well, the beautiful thing about the BZ post, not only was it a cell phone, but like he's left it up. Like I get to use BZ Watchdog to shit all over Michael Ehline. I mean, how fucking fun is that? How fucking fun is that? I think that's hilarious.
And thereby become a quasi federal enclave. And that's you can argue.
What the fuck is a quasi-federal enclave? This is just making shit up. It's a quasi-federal enclave. It's a partial federal enclave. It's a petite federal enclave. Like, what the fuck, dude?
And that's actually a winning argument. Now,
and that's actually a winning argument in your fucking dreams, Michael Ehline. In your fucking dreams, retard.
Enforcement of postal regulations and rules is going to be done exclusively under 18 U.S.C. 3061 sub C sub 2. And these other areas. So we've got local postmasters with the approval of the chief postal inspector. They can enter into agreements. And that's what I keep telling you guys. Yeah.
But what happens, Michael Ehline? What happens if the state has concurrent jurisdiction? That means the state can enforce state laws. That means the state can enforce state laws, and the federal government can enforce federal laws. For example, let me give everybody kind of an example of how this works. Let's say there's a kidnapping and it crosses state lines. Well, then the FBI can get involved. But it was still a kidnapping and states can get involved. So the state can have jurisdiction over it and the federal government can have jurisdiction over it. Or let's say for a drug violation, let's say that someone is caught by a task force of DEA agents and state police. Let's say that both go in on this raid and they find drugs and drug paraphernalia in this house. It's in a particular state, so that state would have jurisdiction over it because the person would have been violating state law, and the state is a separate sovereign, so the state can charge him for it. And the federal government would be able to charge him under the federal drug laws because the federal government is a separate sovereign, and the federal government can charge him under federal law. So for one act, or for each act, like of possession or whatever, the person can be charged with two crimes under two jurisdictions. He can be charged with violation of the state law and the federal law. And Michael Ehline's over here saying only the federal government has the power to enforce federal laws. Congratulations, Michael Ehline. But what about the state? Doesn't the state have power to enforce state laws? When and where does the state have power to enforce state law? Well, the state has power to enforce state law anywhere where the federal government has not declared exclusive jurisdiction. Anywhere within that state's territory, the state can enforce state laws unless the federal government has declared exclusive jurisdiction. I don't know why this is so hard. He has to do so much work to get around this.
Yes, local law enforcement definitely can enforce regs, but probably cannot cite you for violating federal law unless they undergo a very, very extreme course in federal law and regulations.
They don't cite you for federal law unless, of course, they have been a off-duty police officer who has been employed for duty in connection with the protection of property. Those people could charge you for violations of federal law. But they wouldn't. But a normal police officer who goes in to enforce a state trespassing law in a post office that has not been declared to be the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States is going to be enforcing state law. This isn't hard. This isn't rocket science, Ehline. I believe in order to become a patent attorney, you have to have a degree in STEM. Requirements to join patent bar. You have to take the patent bar examination, become either a patent bar attorney or patent agent. Not just anyone can take the patent bar exam. In order to qualify to even take the exam, it is necessary for the individual to take the test to demonstrate to the U.S. PTO's Office of Enrollment Discipline that they, one, possess good moral character, possess, two, the legal, scientific, and technical qualifications necessary for him or her to render applicants valuable service, and three, it is competent to advise and assist patent applicants in the presentation and prosecution. Generally speaking, the main hurdle for most who are unable to sit for the exam is the scientific technical qualification requirement. Those applying to the patent bar must demonstrate to the OED that he or she possesses it. Sets forth the particulars. There's category A, category B, and category C. Category A, having a bachelor's degree in a specified field, is enough to qualify. Under category B, you need a certain number of credit hours, but you must also have a bachelor's degree, which means that college students are not eligible to sit for the patent bar exam until they've graduated. Category C allows other relevant technical background to suffice, but those who sit for the exam under category C are few and far between, and one would have to wonder how easy it would be for them to attain employment without at least some scientific coursework at a college or university level. So there's one of 31 different scientific or engineering disciplines by an accredited U.S. college or university, or the equivalent to a bachelor's degree was awarded by a foreign university. If you have a bachelor's degree in a subject not listed, you have to demonstrate possession of necessary scientific and technical training in category B or C. So yeah, I mean, good luck to Michael Ehline to becoming a patent attorney. I think it is beyond him more than just a time constriction. It is beyond him that he doesn't have the education and intelligence required.
Designated by the chief postal inspector. They can enforce the regulations in this section. And what are the regulations in this section? Postal regulations, guys. Postal regulations exclusively govern under the Code of Federal Regulations, not.
Yeah. No one is arguing otherwise. Like, you're so stupid or disingenuous or both that you're thinking that I'm saying that a police officer who works for the city is going to roll into the USPS and try to enforce the 39 CFR 232.1. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that he's going to roll in there and enforce city trespass laws. That's what he's going to do.
Not a state law. So enclave or not, federal law applies exclusively to postal office crimes, guys.
No, it doesn't. It literally fucking doesn't. The U.S. government has to have either exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction in order for any federal law to be enforced. Any on that property. Well, I mean, well, we go back again to, like, there are some crimes that, like, where the crime crosses state lines that would not. But if we're talking about a crime committed on that property, there has to be concurrent or exclusive federal jurisdiction. Period. End of story. You haven't shown anything that says otherwise. And you haven't dealt with Adams versus United States, which says otherwise.
Postal Service is a federal agency, and although it may be subject to state laws like the vehicle code, or if it's property purchased after maybe 1940 and they didn't maybe sign some agreement, there may be some jurisdiction left for code enforcement or the zoning people to come and cite that local post office for violating a local building code or mineral rights laws, whatever they might have. But as far as what goes on inside that building, that is governed exclusively by the federal code of regulations. And although
bullshit, literally bullshit, and we have a case that is undisturbed in North Carolina that BZ Watchdog has pointed out once fucking again, State versus Graham. Are you going to deal with it, Michael Ehline? How are you going to deal with State versus Graham? Show me how you deal with State versus Graham. Show us.
although I only work for the state prosecutor's office, I know enough about federal law and the underpinnings because we did have cases involving like DUIs with FBI agents and stuff. So I know enough to kind of see what goes on between the two agencies. And I know for sure that the post office is governed exclusively under federal law. And
no, you don't. See, that's what's called an appeal to authority. It's appeal to authority. He doesn't know shit. He doesn't know shit from Shinola. He hasn't dealt with Adams, and he hasn't dealt with the North Carolina case.
Unless there is an interagency agreement. And if you have information
Nope. Adams doesn't require that, and that North Carolina case didn't require that.
showing me that that's incorrect, well, by golly, I'd love to see it, because I certainly don't want to be spreading misinformation. If there's some kind
You certainly love spreading misinformation.
of a scrivener's error or misunderstanding, I want to correct that right away. Now,
No, it's not. No, you lied. You literally fucking lied. You're a liar who lies. You create these things that lie.
the USPS must clarify, or it will be treated as an enclave by the public, in my opinion, because
In my opinion. Whoa, that's a nice qualifier there, Mikey.
now the USPS must clarify, or it will be treated as an enclave by the public.
0 citations to source. 0 citations to source. And nowhere does it say that the USPS must clarify. So the default is the federal government does not have exclusive jurisdiction. When they want to have exclusive jurisdiction, and the way they do it is they file a notice of acceptance with the governor of the state or in another manner prescribed by the laws of the state where the land is situated. So basically, they have to give notice to the state when they are going to have exclusive jurisdiction. The presumption, see, there's a presumption. See, Michael Ehline is trying to flip the presumption around. He says that the presumption is that it is a federal enclave, right? However, the USPS identifies itself as being exclusively federal to the public. Hence, federal courts rather than states courts should be decisive in deciding or hearing a trespass case. But see, that he's flipping the presumption on its head. The presumption is it is conclusively presumed the jurisdiction has not been accepted until the government accepts jurisdiction over the land as provided in the section. I.e., if there is nothing saying that the USPS has accepted exclusive jurisdiction, then the presumption is, the conclusive presumption is that the USPS is not a federal enclave, that the US government does not have exclusive jurisdiction. And so state agencies can enforce state laws in that post office. That is the presumption. That is the conclusive presumption.
In my opinion, because identifying whether operations are taking place, this should be an L, has a huge impact upon individual rights. On the substantive side, federal laws often replace state laws when it comes to land leases. And so that's what I was talking about, BZ, is that the reason why whether or not the building has been declared an enclave really has to do with things like land leases and remedies over the title. It really has absolutely nothing to do with criminal enforcement, because whether there's
No, it has everything to do. That's what Adams versus United States dealt with. That was the big case. That is the big case. Adams versus United States. I mean, it's a fucking Supreme Court case. One would assume that it means something. What are they talking about? What are they talking about? They're talking about 18 USC. 18 USC is criminal laws. 18 USC. Criminal laws. Specifically, that's criminal. That has nothing to do with title or anything like that. It's criminal law. This is slc.ca.gov. California State Lands Commission, slc.ca.gov. Transferring the state's legislative jurisdiction to the United States is accomplished through a cessation of jurisdiction. Throughout its history, California has ceded differing degrees of its jurisdiction. Between 1852 and 1939, California ceded all of its civil and criminal jurisdiction to the United States over various tracts of federal lands. Today, however, it cedes only its criminal jurisdiction on the condition that the United States and California exercise that jurisdiction to the same degree. Below are brief descriptions of the various degrees of cessation of jurisdiction that California has ceded over the years. What does proprietorial interest only mean? Proprietorial interest only means when the United States has proprietorial jurisdiction over a parcel of land, it means that California has not made any cessation or transfer of its legislative authority to the United States, and that it retains, it being California, retains all of its civil and criminal legislative authority. Nevertheless, the exercise of California law is subject to limitations imposed by federal laws, such as the supremacy and preemption clauses and other federal laws superseding California law. However, California retains criminal legislative authority. Can the federal government usurp it? Sure. Federal government can say, no, we are taking exclusive jurisdiction from you. Yeah. You couldn't do that in a post office that was even exclusive jurisdiction, because it gets you through the Assimilated Crimes Act. Retrocessions of jurisdiction occur when the United States returns all or part of the legislative jurisdiction previously ceded to it by California. In doing so, concurrent or proprietorial jurisdiction can be established. Retrocessions occur at the discretion of the United States and generally take place where there can be an enhancement of law enforcement or state services, and benefits can be made to persons living or working on federal property. So what citation does he have? He says that proprietary jurisdiction means not criminal law. California thinks it's criminal law. California thinks it's criminal law. So that's fucking weird, isn't it? Who do you think knows more? Do you think California knows more, or do you think Michael Ehline knows more? And what do you think is more harmonious? California's understanding of it, is that more harmonious with what we've read in 40 U.S.C. 3112 and Adams versus United States and the North Carolina Defenders Manual? It's amazing. Like, a reasonable person could just look at this and be like, look, these things have to make sense together. They have to make sense together. Like, what would the difference between, like, why would it say state and local laws primarily govern the actual property, such as zoning and building regulations, not criminal law enforcement? Why is he drawing this distinction? I don't get it.
jurisdiction. What that tells me, all that tells me is that they're not going to enter into proprietary or
All that tells me, you mean all the fucking bullshit that you made up? All the bullshit you made up tells you that you're right. Well, that's fucking crazy. All the shit, I made up all of these rules, and because of these rules, I'm convinced that I'm right. Well, congratulations.
current jurisdiction arrangements with people. They have decided that they are going to control that property 1,000%. Now,
Go ahead. So I was doing some research on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it like after 2005 that they because I saw the enclave. I think there was anything from 1940 to anything purchased after 05 again. Isn't that?
Well, I know what you mean. So they did change some regs, but it's really irrelevant whether you call it an enclave or not. What you could call it is it's a federal.
They did change some regs. Like they changed some regs, but they don't mean anything. It's just words.
Building under. I know what you mean. So they did change some regs, but it's really irrelevant whether you call it an enclave or not. What you could call it is it's a federal building under exclusive federal jurisdiction. But for guys like me, because I'm old school, everything's considered a federal enclave. It's federal. But I get it.
I mean, except for all the stuff where it says that doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way. It hasn't worked that way since 40 USC 255 was passed in 1940. It has never fucking worked that way. And you weren't practicing law back in 1939. So what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It has literally never worked that way. Ever. Since you've been an attorney, it has never worked that way. It worked that way in 1939 prior. You weren't born in 1939. Ever since you've been an attorney. When did you become an attorney, Michael Ehline? Michael Ehline was admitted to the State Bar of California in 2005. The old guys like him, who ever since he's been an attorney, it's been that way. You fucking retard. Ever since you've been an attorney, sir, from the day you were first licensed to practice law, it has been that way. Old dogs like you fucking lying piece of shit.
I get it. If I have a land lease issue with a post office or something, I should know that after 1940 there could be some issues. Maybe the local building code may not be subsumed by federal law. So things like that. But really have nothing.
Subsumed. He loves to say subsumed. Everything is subsumed. My dick is subsumed up his asshole.
I only ask because I know that between 2011 and recent, they closed down the old post office and moved location about a mile down the road to that location. So that's I was reading more on the enclave with the purchasing of the land, and so that's where I was trying to get a little bit more legal clarity.
Well,
so to help you out, BZ, because you're never going to get the fucking information from Michael Ehline. What you'd have to do is you'd have to figure out how does Texas accept notice of exclusive jurisdiction? How does Texas accept notice of exclusive jurisdiction from federal 40 USC? I can't do that, so I'm going to do 31112. Well, this is fucking interesting. This was a FOIA that someone sent in 2007 from San Francisco requesting a copy of all the following documents. Any and all letters from the Department of Justice, Immigration and Naturalization Service accepting on behalf of the United States of America, the government, jurisdiction over any lands acquired in California pursuant to 40 U.S.C. 3112, formerly codified at 40 U.S.C. 255. Any and all letters from the government accepting jurisdiction over any lands acquired in Imperial County, California, pursuant to 40 U.S.C. 3112. 3. Any and all documents relating to jurisdictional status of property located at 1111 and or 1115 North Imperial Ave, El Centro, Imperial County, California, blah, blah, blah. So these people right here. These are probably actual attorneys who have an actual question about whether or not the land that it's on is the land that the alleged crime was committed on was a federal enclave with exclusive jurisdiction. Isn't that fucking weird? But let's look. We're looking for so it looks like you would FOIA the U.S. General Services Administration, BZ Watchdog, the FOIA expert. This is how you do it. You would FOIA the U.S. GSA and see whether or not there is a anything where they accept or demand exclusive jurisdiction. But how does Texas accept it? Does Texas have a law? So if Texas doesn't have a law, if Texas does not have a law that accepts it, that changes it, then the default would be that it has to be a letter to the governor. So remember, it has to be a filing a notice of acceptance with the governor of the state or in another manner prescribed by the laws of the state. So there's what I would suggest to you, BZ Watchdog, is you go down two roads at once. The first road is I would definitely FOIA request from the post office whether or not they've asked for it. I would also ask for it from the GSA, just in case the GSA acquired the property and the GSA wants exclusive jurisdiction. I would also ask the GSA, and then as a backup, I would use whatever FOIA laws that Texas has, and I would ask Texas for a copy of the notice of acceptance on that. That's what I would do. So you're welcome. If anybody wants to let BZ know that we're an hour and about 58 minutes into here, that's how you do it, BZ. You're welcome. So don't get lost in the minutia or red herrings. The mission is accountability. So he's like, hey BZ, don't ask me legal questions. We're gonna go over to here because I don't have answers for you. Isn't that weird? Two different attorneys, two totally different tactics. BZ's like, I have this question. I have this question on how I do a thing. And I'm like, oh, here's how you do it. And I don't even like BZ. And he asks Michael Ehline, his friend, the same fucking thing. And Michael Ehline's like, ooh, song and dance. Don't look over here. Oh, let's go over here. Woo! It does. It literally fucking does. It literally does. So unless it is exclusive jurisdiction, I would assume that state law applies. So under concurrent and proprietary, I would assume that state law applies. I would always assume that federal law applies. I would always assume that federal law applies in the post office. I'm not saying that it necessarily does, but I would assume it does. I haven't looked into it enough. I would always guess that the post office has it. Let me rephrase this. It is always safer to assume that the federal laws apply in a post office. It's safer to make that assumption. It's also safe to make the assumption that state law applies. If you really want to be down to it, like if you don't want to get arrested, just assume state law applies, just assume federal law applies, right? But at the end of the day, you're never really going to know whether state law applies or federal law applies until you get in front of a judge. Because the question of whether or not state law applies or federal law applies is a question that a judge will answer. Just so you know. You haven't been watching, you've been looking at the wrong goddamn tabs. Wrong goddamn tabs. Nobody said anything. Anyway, let's go back and listen to the song and do it.
Exclusive jurisdiction, concurrent, or proprietary. Under all three of those configurations, the Post Office, the Code of Federal Regulations specifically says that these rules are these are the sole and exclusive rules governing post offices. And if they wanted to change that, they could enter into a proprietary agreement or a cooperative relationship under concurrent jurisdiction, and they could also do the same thing under proprietary if they wanted to. It doesn't have the same level as legislative authority. But other than that,
it doesn't have the same level as legislative authority. What the fuck does that even mean, dude? Like, what are you talking? It doesn't have the same. Why would ordinances apply but not criminal statutes apply? Like, I don't even understand.
none of these really, all of these, honestly, in my opinion, DZ, they're kind of like red herrings in a way, because again, the post office is exclusively federal. So federal criminal law is going to be the applicable law here. Now, there's zero proof of concurrent criminal jurisdiction in any codes or statutes that I can find related to the post office. Yeah.
What if it's a multi-purpose post office? What if, for example, the post office is also a grocery store? How would that be handled? How would that be resolved? Well, according to Michael Ehline, the only way that the state criminal laws would be applicable would be if there was concurrent jurisdiction, but the default is that only federal law applies. So if you steal a loaf of bread from one of these post office grocery stores, then what? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Michael Ehline, like, he has to ignore so much to try to make his little view make sense. It's fucking weird.
I'm checking out the Snipe channel. Somebody put it on their screen. I found a federal appeals case that said that state trespass law can't cover federal trespass law.
Well, yeah. So I cited a case like that at the very beginning, U.S. versus Waits. Basically, that's the what is it called? Hold on one second. Let me pull that up really quick.
Well, we've got a lot of people jump in here since it too, so I kind of wanted to.
I understand. The bottom line is, I'll go back to that in a minute. But so the way it works is, there was an Oregon Ninth Circuit case that came down, I think, in like 2000, and they had this issue. And the bottom line is, you cannot use a state law to replace or subsume a federal law that's already in existence at that location. So a local law enforcement officer, unless they have training in federal law enforcement, they don't have the legal authority to cite you for a federal trespass.
The federal government cannot assimilate state laws to charge you with if there is a federal law that covers it. Let me repeat that. The federal government cannot charge you with an assimilated state law crime if there is a federal crime that covers it. A state can charge you with the exact same state law that the federal government can't assimilate if there's concurrent jurisdiction or proprietary jurisdiction. Do you need a hug?
Trespass. And if they cite you for a state trespass on federal land, that is a violation of Title 18. They don't have to replace or subsume a federal law that's already in existence at that location. So a local law enforcement officer, unless they have training in federal law enforcement, they don't have the legal authority to cite you for a federal trespass. And if they cite...
Waits did not deal with state law enforcement. Waits did not deal with state law enforcement.
You for a state trespass on federal land, that is a violation of Title 18.
Waits did not deal with charging a state crime. Waits dealt with assimilating a state crime.
And also the supremacy clause. There's so many issues here. This is absolutely federal land, or it's governed as a federal building. And because of that, it's exclusively going to be governed under the Code of Federal Regulations.
Again, no, not necessarily. The presumption is that there is not exclusive jurisdiction. That is the presumption.
It's a legal impossibility, DZ, in my opinion, for it to be anything other than that. But we'll just keep going. Now, arguments for the deep state, which would be the people who think that local cops should be able to come on federal land and write tickets. Their argument is that because if the land was with proprietary jurisdiction and not declared an enclave, they would say that there's not exclusive authority, and therefore local police can enforce state and local laws, including trespass warnings. But the problem with that argument, as I've said, they would never have legal authority to issue federal violations without training and some kind of interagency agreement, which requires coordination with federal authorities. Okay, you guys follow me so far?
They don't have to issue federal violations. They don't have to issue federal violations. The state, in proprietary jurisdiction and concurrent jurisdiction, the state can come and issue state or arrest you for violation of state law. The state can arrest you for a violation of state law. If there's concurrent jurisdiction or proprietary jurisdiction, the state can arrest you for violations of state law. You're twisting this ridiculously. They don't. It even says it here. Local police can arguably enforce state and local laws, including issuing trespass warnings and arresting you for violations of trespass. Yeah. Yeah, they can. They can.
Hopefully you guys are seeing what's going on. Federal law is still the law. And that's what Baffin say.
Federal law is still the law. Yeah. Well, that's very tautological. Round things are round. And state law is state law. And if it's concurrent jurisdiction, state law and federal law are both enforceable. State law by state enforcement agencies, federal law by federal enforcement agencies, and ne'er the twain shall meet.
Says so. Now, arguments against the deep state Leviathan would be exclusive jurisdiction on federal.
Why do I have to be deep state Leviathan? Why is me just telling you what the fucking law is? This is what the law is. This is not what I want the law to be. This is what the fucking law is. Like, hey, reality exists. And in reality, post offices are almost always going to be concurrent or proprietary jurisdiction. Almost always.
Land with exclusive jurisdiction, the local law enforcement has limited authority, like an emergency, hot pursuit, or maybe in this case, if it wasn't wasn't a declared enclave, a property law issue like zoning or something, right? But
on federal land with exclusive jurisdiction, the state has no legislative authority. The state can't require any zoning things. The state can't do fuck all. The state has no jurisdiction. The state has no jurisdiction. Where the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction, the state has no jurisdiction. Zero. They can't do zoning. They can't even necessarily do hot pursuit. I mean, they don't have jurisdiction to go on there, but maybe if the police are chasing someone down a road that's going to end up inside of a military base, they might call ahead and say, hey, so-and-so is somebody's heading your way and we're pursuing him. But every base that I'm aware of has methods to prevent people from getting on it. So the hot pursuit would stop very quickly with the raised pylons, but what if the post office is a leased storefront in a shopping center? Wouldn't the post office be subject to the lease and jurisdiction of the lease? Yes. So exclusive jurisdiction is normally when it, so going back to it. So it's when the state cedes control over property. Does it go into it here? So the federal government can acquire real estate for the erection of public buildings by condemning it, by taking it, or they can enter into an agreement with the state to do it. But if they don't enter into an agreement with the state, if they just rent property or lease property, then that's proprietarial jurisdiction. For example, proprietarial interest only. California has not made any cessation or transfer of its legislative authority and retains all of its criminal and civil legislative authority. So that's what it would be. Now, there may be instances where there is federal preemption, but that's the exception to the rule. So if they acquire proprietarial interest only, they have about as much control over it as any other renter or lessor. They can control what's going on in it, but they would still be subject to zoning laws, and they'd still be subject, like they could, if they violate their lease, they could still be evicted and things like that.
Any criminal law enforcement action is going to be done through the USPIS or designated law enforcement authorities or by deputizing local law enforcement. But again, when you deputize local law enforcement, they don't have the right to issue citations, guys. They're deputized.
Why don't they have the right to? This literally says they do. With respect to such property, such officers shall have the power to enforce federal laws and regulations for the protection of persons and property, carry firearms, make arrests without warrant for any offense against the United States committed in the presence of the officer, or for any felony cognizable under the laws of the United States if the officer has reasonable grounds to believe the person to be arrested has committed or is committing a felony. With respect to such property, such officers may have, to such extent as a postal service by regulations prescribed, the power to serve warrants and subpoenas issued under the authority of the United States and conduct investigations on and off the property in question of offenses that may have been committed against property owned or occupied by the postal service or persons on the property. It looks to me like they can employ police officers, not to say they don't have arrest powers or anything like that. It appears they do. It appears that they do. They can make arrests. You're telling me they can't issue citations, but they can make arrests?
Designated law enforcement authorities or by deputizing local law enforcement. But again, when you deputize local law enforcement, they don't have the right to issue citations, guys. They're deputized. They're making an assist. Now,
they have the right to make an arrest. They're not deputized. They're hired.
There's legal limitations, jurisdictional boundaries. Local officers have to respect jurisdictional boundaries. Otherwise, we don't have a federal system. They can't unilaterally enforce federal laws unless there's explicit authorization or a specific agreement in place. And then as far as to prosecute, any citations are...
This is a red herring. No one, I don't know of anyone who said that state law enforcement are going to go out enforcing federal laws, barring the employment of them by the, like in a federal task force or something like that, or if the employment I don't know. It could. It honestly could. I mean, if it does just mean use, then that's going to really fucking suck for him. So Juan Galt is another attorney who isn't telling me I'm wrong, but is saying that maybe, just maybe, employ means that they might use regular police officers for duty in connection with protection of property. Fucking crazy. Thanks, Juan. One more way that Ehline is probably wrong.
Arrests have to fall under the authority of federal law enforcement and local PD, unless by a local interagency agreement. That's not going to happen, buddy. And so
Again, you say that with zero citation to any authority.
that's pretty much what we have. And now I'd like to show your whole video, and, but I want to let you, say your piece before we get it going.
Well, I just want to kind of go. I think that's kind of why, and I'm not sure. I got to look at the case for all the details, but I think that's how Sean Paul Reyes, aka known as Long Island Audit, got out of his trespass and arrest at the post office 2 years ago. It's like something to do with where the local jurisdiction didn't have some sort of federal oversight, because I guess he was taken down to like a local jail instead of like the federal facility. So they the entire case. I got to look more into the details of grounds of why I got dismissed. I mean, I can only make the assumption based on today's the slideshow of the federal enclave that was probably why it was dismissed.
Well, I don't know. There could be lots of reasons why it's dismissed. There's lots of cases every day. There's lots of criminal cases every day that get dismissed because for a lot of reasons. There might not be enough DAs to go around. The witness, there might be witnesses that are refusing to testify. There might be some evidentiary issue that they just don't really fucking care to go after it. It might be for piddly shit. I mean, I've told the story before about the one case that I had where the guy was charged with like 13 different things. I was representing him on like 5 or 6 of them, and the public defender was representing him on like the others, and they dropped all of the ones that I was representing him on, because they wanted to get me the fuck out of the case because I was dumb shit and didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I was making a pig's ear of the whole thing. There's lots of reasons that cases get dropped. So trying to guess why a particular case got dropped, nobody fucking knows. Nobody fucking knows. I mean, it could have been a barred by time. It could have been like technically they couldn't show intent or something. I mean, who knows? Who fucking knows?
Again, whether it's a federal enclave or not is irrelevant. What matters is that it's a federal building, and in this case, it's a post office. And because it's a post office, it's going to be exclusively governed under the Code of Federal Regulations. And because it's exclusive.
I mean, you could say it with as much emphasis as you want to, Michael Ehline, but the presumption is that jurisdiction has not been accepted until the government accepts jurisdiction over land as provided in this section. It is conclusively presumed. No, the judge didn't dismiss it. The ADA did, the ADA did. She was a cutie too. Oof. So many cute young attorneys go in to become prosecutors and public defenders. I don't know why.
Governed under the Code of Federal Regulations. If local law enforcement has not entered into an interagency agreement with said post office and they have no training to enforce federal laws, their only option would be to issue a local citation, and they're not authorized to do that, and the federal law prohibits them from doing that.
Unless there's concurrent jurisdiction or the post office only has a proprietary jurisdiction. I mean, those are your. It's absolutely why I didn't. And no, I mean, honestly, I would not feel comfortable. I would rather help guilty people go free than ever risk putting an innocent person in jail. That to me would be a burden I could not bear. So if that helps you out.
And so if they do that, I believe that you would have grounds for a Title 42, Section 19.
If they do that,
and they're not authorized to do that, and the federal law prohibits them from doing that. And so if they do that, I believe that you would have grounds for a Title 42, Section 1983 lawsuit for false arrest and probably several other things. But again,
okay, sweet. Show me one. Show me one. Pull it up, Michael Ehline. Show me your 1983 case.
And I'm only licensed to practice law in Texas. Law is an art, and I'd have to know more about the case. I'd have to look at the file and do additional shepherdizing of the statute to give you a bright line answer. But I'm pretty sure, based on my opinion, even my lay opinion, that I'm right about this, and that these local law enforcement agencies have no jurisdiction to come on there and harass you, and that if the U.S. Post Office is serious about things, that they should go ahead and offer the training classes and cede some authority to local PD. And again, if local PD does this.
Wait a minute. How do you know they haven't ceded it by not claiming it? How do you know they haven't? How do you fucking know they haven't?
The post office is probably going to have to offer them some kind of a stipend. Some of these interagency agreements that I've seen are
How do you probably have to offer them a stipend? Why? Why can't the post office under 40 USC 3112, in order to save money on enforcement, in order to have to hire fewer post USPIS, in order to save money and to hire fewer law enforcement, why don't they just say, hey, we're not accepting exclusive jurisdiction? And why don't they just tell their employees, call the local PD if anyone's giving you shit, and have the person trespassed? Why don't they do that? Because we've seen local PD show up to enforce it. Go behind the lines. He's like, yeah, I've gone to post offices before. I've enforced trespassing. We've seen police come to BZ Watchdog. And the police were more than willing to trespass him. So if the local police are willing to do it, if the local town, if the local county, whoever is paying these law enforcement officers is willing to shoulder the burden of paying for the law enforcement, and if the state is willing to pay for the cost of the criminal prosecution, and if the state is willing to pay for the cost of incarcerating the person, then why would the post office, who in a previous video you chastised for there you go, you chastised for being in debt, why wouldn't they save that money and just not take exclusive jurisdiction and allow the police to enforce local trespassing laws, local disorderly conduct laws, local breach of the peace laws, local whatever the fuck laws, to save them time, to save them money, to save them manpower? Why wouldn't they do that? Well, they do it. They literally fucking do it, which is why they called the local police on BZ Watchdog. You think, Ehline, that they don't have policies in place on who to call and how to call? We watched another video of the Wiggins or something like that. Another guy who got arrested, charged, and convicted for that what was it? It was Wiggins, right? Wiggins. It was a weird ass noise. I think it was Wiggins. We watched the video on it. We watched the arrest videos. He gets arrested by local PD. He gets charged by local PD. He gets convicted for trespass. Why would that happen? Why would that happen unless the federal government was granting concurrent jurisdiction? And like, who's the real deep state motherfucker? Who's the real deep state motherfucker? You're saying only the federal government should be able to control what happens in post offices. I'm saying the state should. Most likely the state does, right? In most cases, the post office is going to have concurrent jurisdiction or proprietary jurisdiction only, right? Which means the state will have concurrent jurisdiction or just general jurisdiction. Isn't the Leviathan like wanting the federal government to control everything? Is it like you're the one championing this weird ass interpretation that only federal laws matter, which is fucking weird. I'm over here saying states' rights, motherfucker. States' rights. Goddamn war of northern aggression.
about this thick. So when local PD starts enforcing laws on a federal
Wait, what's about that thick?
post office is probably going to have to offer them some kind of a stipend. Some of these interagency agreements that I've seen are about this thick. So
You haven't seen any goddamn interagency agreements. He's just lying. He's just lying. Show us the fucking interagency agreement. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So when local PD starts enforcing laws on a federal property, federal building, whether you want to call it an enclave or not, it's outside their jurisdiction, and the local taxpayers have to fund that. So as a result, what's going to happen is there's going to have to be some money change in hands. And so that's another thing that's got to happen. So
it's got to happen. It's got to happen. I'm not going to show you a statute that says it. I mean, the easiest thing to do would be to have no money changing hands and for the post office just not to accept exclusive jurisdiction. That's the easiest thing to do. No money has to change hands. They just enforce state law, and there you go. That's the easiest thing to do.
there's a reason why things happen. There's a reason why we have federal laws. There's a reason why you have a postal inspection service. And there's a reason why the Postal Service sent out memos
Deep state, motherfucker.
to all their postal employees saying to leave guys like Easy Watchdog alone and don't cause trouble with them.
And yet they call the fucking cops. They call the cops. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that weird? And you know what's even crazier? The local cops accept a lot of potential liability for a 1983 action by responding to it. But you know what? I'll bet you can't show me a single motherfucking cop that lost a 1983 lawsuit based on trespassing someone from a post office at the behest of the post office. If you can't show it to me, I would love to see it.
They're just not paying any attention, not having it because you're in their hood, and they don't like it, basically. Is that a fair statement? Yeah.
Is that a fair statement? Somebody's in the hood?
And before we roll that beautiful bean footage, since we got quite a few people in here, I just want to let you guys know, don't do what I do. Don't do what Chili does. Make sure you guys learn the law, know your rights, buy your trifold, guys. You know, I've got my trifold right here. I don't utilize it because I've got to know it very well now.
Buy a trifold? I don't utilize it. Okay. Does Chili audit post offices? I have never heard of Chili auditing a post office. Does Chili audit post offices? I don't know.
It's taking about 5 months. But I still keep it in the vehicle in case I get stopped because I don't know why. Because the first thing I'm going to do is invoke that.
Why do you have your name on your shirt, Basil? BZ? Basil Zangier? Why do you have your name on your shirt?
Fifth, Fourth, and First Amendment and not waive any of my rights. So you guys can go over to, actually, Gloria, I thank you for putting the link up. If you guys go over there and put in that BZ Watchdog sent you over, just put a BZ or BZ Watchdog. That way, Team DLZ knows that I sent you over there. They're also going to go ahead and include a set of 5A cop cards. I know you guys can't see it with my green screen, but I do have a 5A cop card set, driver, non-driver, along with my trifold. I did get an extra trifold that I gave to my neighbor who drives for Uber Eats. She's a young 19-year-old girl, so I wanted to make sure she had that in her car. Make sure I showed her how to use it. Also gave her Chili's links to show exactly how to utilize it, just so she doesn't get caught there for decrement. The fact that she's only 19, she doesn't know it, right? She doesn't know. I mean, the education system here, I hate to say this for anybody in Texas, but it is not the West Coast education I received. So I'm just saying that if you're in one of those states where the education system is subpar, it wouldn't hurt you to get a trifold because even the cops here don't even know their own laws. And when I say that, I don't mean just the state and federal level. They don't even know their own city laws.
You know who else started selling shit like this? It was Earl David Warden. He started selling all sorts of like paintball or pepper ball guns and shit like that. Air guns. Air guns. Tap Security Products. That's the little logo his shirt has on it. He made little shirts. Yeah. He was Force Recon, guys. He was Force Recon. Do you guys know that? This guy right here claims to have been Force Recon.
They get 24 credit hours in a local college at a D- grade and get hired on with no vetting, pretty much. They just want a breathing body. That's how bad it is here. So go over to delete.
What are the educational requirements to become an auditor? What are the education requirements? Oh, wait. So you're suggesting to me that to be a cop, you have to have some education requirements, and to be a auditor, you don't have to have any? How much education did Ehline have when he became an attorney? How much education did he have when he became an attorney? Did he have less than a police officer in Texas with your D grades?
DZLaws.com. Buy your trifolds. Learn the law, know your rights. Okay?
And if you mention
How much education does Chile have? Does Chile have any upper education? I don't know. So you've got Basil Zangier, who sells cars and security products, although I doubt he makes much money, if any. Let's see. He's got a couple LinkedIn. He's got I don't want to sign in. God, every time you sign into fucking LinkedIn, it haunts you. But he's got 2 different LinkedIn accounts. 3? He's got 3 different LinkedIn accounts. Holy shitballs. 3 different LinkedIn accounts. Good old Basil. Good old Basil. Anyway, he sells cars, or he alleges that he sold cars, financed cars, etc. Not that there's anything wrong with selling cars. You can make a lot of money selling cars. I know guys who've made a shit ton of money selling cars. Now you don't have weekends, you don't have holidays. You're working weekends, you're working holidays, but you can make a shit ton of money. Was he at college? Was he attending it, or was he at college? Because there is a difference. Jeff Gray is a great auditor. I like that dude. He doesn't bullshit about nothing. He says he was a truck driver. He says he was a 88 Mike is a glorified way of saying truck driver. I like guys who don't brag, who could just be comfortable with who they are and don't have to brag, don't have to claim to be more than they are to try to get people's respect, who could just do things that earn respect. Just do things that earn respect.
BZ, you got to set up cop cards.
Instead of 5 cop cards, driver, non-drivers. That way you can give them to somebody.
So type in BZ, I guess, when they make the order.
BZ Watchdog, as long as there's a BZ in there. There's no specific code. Just put it in the comment section, and we'll make sure, we get those set of 5 cop cards sent to you. And
Can you answer Freeman's question real quick? Because
sure.
I know the answer already, but go ahead.
I don't see where.
He said I thought the post office was a private entity, but yeah, it's quasi-private.
It may be a private entity with the federal government who regulates it and sets forth the rules and the jurisdiction. So you've heard that it's a private business. Well, it's a business ran by the federal government. It's actually ran, controlled, and enforced by the executive branch of the government, and Congress is the one that actually sets the budget every year. So it's government ran.
It is. It
don't, because it's a quasi-federal agency. I'm sure you guys have heard Mike say that before. The federal
shit.
This is Poster 7. These are the rules and regulations.
Got excited because I was going to talk.
Vetting, pretty much. They just want a breathing body. That's how bad it is here. So go over to.
Yeah. So I was going to say that I don't really give a shit about your respect. And if you think I'm going to shut up for your respect, well, I'd have to care about you to want your respect. But I don't. I mean, you should pretty much, like, I'm going to guess I'm going to guess you have a feel for me, who I am and what I'm about by this point. I'm out here in a goddamn t-shirt, right? I don't really give a fuck. And if I actually gave a shit about you, I would like probably do a delete laws, and I would put on a not delete laws, the Darcy. There you go. I'm just fucking. That's so fucking weird. Anyway, if I gave a fuck about you, I would like try to impress you, but I don't. I mean, I'm out here. I was working all day. I'm out here in a dirty t-shirt, probably still sweaty. Well, I am still sweaty, but you might be able to see I'm sweaty. I just don't give a shit, dude. Like I don't care. My purpose to being out here is to educate. My purpose to be out here is to educate, and hopefully I am educating. All right.
To DZLaws.com, buy your trifolds, learn the law, know your rights. Okay?
And if you mention BZ, you get a set of cop cards.
Get a set of 5 A cop cards, driver, non-drivers. That way you can give them to somebody.
So type in BZ, I guess, when they make the order.
BZ Watchdog, as long as there's a BZ in there. There's no specific code. Just put it in the comment section, and we'll make we get those set of 5 A cop cards sent to you. And
can you answer Freeman's question real quick? Because
sure.
I know the answer already, but go ahead.
I don't see where.
I thought the post office was a private entity, but yeah, it's quasi-private.
It may be a private entity with the federal government who regulates it and sets forth the rules and the jurisdiction. So you've heard that it's a private business. Well, it's a business ran by the federal government. It's actually ran, controlled, and enforced by the executive branch.
This message is held for review. Why are messages being held for review? How do I make it so messages aren't held for review? This Ehline ain't fine guy, his messages are getting held, and I don't know why. I know Google does that, but I don't want to sit here and have to go into people's things and do it. Is there? I know is Jeff here, Senor Jefe? Is there a way to make it so messages aren't held? Anyway, if someone comes up with an answer. Yeah, we're not doing a wrench moderator to approve messages, Laura. I don't trust anybody. I guess we'll just have to deal with that. Anyway, if your message gets held, I'm sorry. I don't have it set to hold messages. So Ehline ain't fine. I know you're trying to dunk on me or whatever, but I'm sorry. Sorry your messages are getting held.
Of the government, and Congress is the one that actually sets the budget every year. So it's government ran.
It is.
Don't, because it's a quasi-federal agency. I'm sure you guys have heard Mike say that before. The postal employees aren't technically federal employees.
That's right.
But it's on federal land.
No, they're federal employees. They have FERS. What is FERS? FERS is the post office. FERS. What does FERS stand for? Federal Employees Retirement System. That's what FERS stands for. And so here, let me show you this tab. So FERS, about USPS Home. FERS consists of Social Security, Basic Annuity Plan, and TSP. National Association of Medicare's monthly FERS. FERS is the Federal Employees Retirement System. So they are federal employees. So yeah. So they are definitely federal employees.
They get federal money, they get federal pensions and benefits, and therefore have to abide by federal rules and regulations while they're there on property.
Major asset to the Democrat Party in political fundraising. The Democrat overwhelmingly gives to the Democrat Party, so it's major, and they're subsidized billions of dollars every year because they lose money.
I just want to address Terrence McGowan's comment. He says government ran, which makes it public. Just so you guys know, the fact that there's PO boxes in there, everything except for the retail lobby, which has another separate set of doors or a swinging gate that they can secure and lock, is open to the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they can't deny you access to your mail. They also have a self-service machine in there, so you can go in there and buy stamps when you're not able to. The retail lobby is only open if you want to deal with a live person, or if you need to do something like certified mail or deal with a scale or whatnot like that. And those have set hours that are posted also on the front of the door that says lobby out, like full service or lobby hours. So
well, there is a body of law that says that, it is open to the public, but only for official business. So if you're there for official business, such as news reporting, it seems to me that would be a valid purpose to be there. And so it seems to me that an audit would fall into that category.
No. So it's if you're there for official business, meaning that the business for which the post office is set up, right? The post office does business. They sell stamps. They accept mail. They ship packages. They sell postcards. They do. Oh God, why am I blanking out? You got the photo taken. Passport. They do passports. They do all these things for money. They're in the business of doing these things, right? That's their business. You might say, well, I'm doing my business here and my business is filming, but that's not, you're not there for the business for which the post office is set up. That's what they mean when they say, like, are you here like for business? And auditors always try to make it, oh, I'm conducting my business here. Well, no. Think about it using a little bit of slippery slope. Like, what if you wanted to go in there and use their counter, set your laptop up on it and start using that to do your work, right? They're going to be like, no, you got to get the fuck out of here. This isn't for you. You're like, well, I'm doing my business. No. So it's are you there for post office business? Not are you there to do your business, but are you there for post office business?
Category. Now, ultimately, this is going to happen because this is a new body of law. I hate to say it, guys, but this is just a new body of law. There are jurisdictional differences in application and enforcement everywhere. And the deal is most cases like misdemeanors and infractions that these types of cases fall under usually don't go up and make case law unless you're rich. I mean, the fact that Chili's case.
Well, so here's the problem. Like, me wanting to educate you about what the laws are doesn't mean that that's the way I want the laws to be. You're stupid, and you're assuming that because I'm saying this is the way the laws are, that it's me saying this is the way I want the laws to be. I would be fine with the USPS being privatized. I don't know particularly why we need to have a federal USPS. I don't know why we have to have federal laws applying to the USPS. Why does it have to be treated any different than any other business? I don't know. Does that make me a cop sucker? Because I don't know. But the laws exist, and the laws are interpreted in a specific way, not on like they are on YouTube with Ehline, but they're actually interpreted in a specific way. And so if you don't want to know what the laws are, that's fine. I mean, you are more than welcome to do it. There have been a lot of people who didn't like the way the laws were, and they went out and they filmed in post offices, and they pushed it to the point where they actually got arrested for trespass. Then they actually got charged and tried and convicted under state law for trespass. Does that make me a cop sucker because I know it exists? Does that make me a cop sucker because I report on it? I mean, no. I mean, like, it's like saying like the news is biased because they report what's happening. That's how stupid you are. That's literally how stupid you are. No one has asked me what my opinion is on any of these laws, and I haven't told you what my opinion is on the laws. I'm just telling you what it is. Like, if you want to get arrested, great. I mean, go have fun, bro. Go have fun. But you're certainly not adding anything to the conversation. So let's move on.
This went all the way up to an appeal for a misdemeanor is unheard of, but sometimes you get lucky. And those smaller cases are the ones that really make the law, just like Alan Beck's knife cases in Hawaii. Bearable arms, guys. And that's, so it leads full circle. So really quick, James Forbes says, hi, Jack off. Oh, hi, James. Oh, I must be talking to someone else. Hi, Reek Z. Hi, Chevy. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and commenting and being kind and considerate. I'm going to now play the rest of this beautiful Dean bad footage.
You guys really need to educate in Texas. But I got 4 people done sitting here back. You know what I mean? I'm going to arrest the week.
Business has to do with financial transactions and stuff. They feel insecure about it being filmed.
When did you guys become the feelings police instead of law enforcement? But you're here to enforce the law, correct, sir?
And part of that is being when people are wanted on places.
Because of their feelings.
It doesn't matter. Like he was explaining, there doesn't have to be.
What do y'all do? Go to Tarrant County College for the academy? I'm not trying to insult you, but that's where everybody.
Well, that's how you want,
I'm not trying to insult you.
Conversation, or you can be the way you are.
I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just. All right, Sarge, what you come up with?
I didn't get that clever.
I'll identify as good citizen for now.
I want Sergeant Brady. Didn't get that.
I didn't get your badge.
So 82.
Okay.
So here's the deal.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
So here's the deal. You can't go back in there.
Here doing another post office audit. Doing a mass audit day to day. Tuesday, I believe, May 13th, May 14th.
currently over here at 6051 Davis Boulevard in North Richland Hills, Texas. I just left another location where they had a 2-star rating. I'm sorry, they had a 1.9 star rating. Some things happened there. I'm about to go in here where they have a 2.0 rating as well for pretty much the same complaints. So with that being said, let's get this party started. All right. So for those of you who are in North Richland Hills, the address right here, service hours. I got some smart lockers here. Gotcha. Is there a different address that I can send it to? This is Poster 7. These are the rules and regulations that govern the post office. They're usually hung up on a bulletin board near the glass lobby doors. That's what we showed earlier. Photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or not and auditoriums when used for public meetings, except where prohibited by official signs or security force personnel or authorized personnel or a federal court rule. Other photographs may be taken only with the permission of the local postmaster or installation head.
It just amazes me how they read that time and time again. And they completely ignore that it says that, you know, it can be any authorized person can tell you, no, you can't film here. And all of a sudden you can't film there. It just amazes me that they say it over and over again. They read it and it says it explicitly in it and they don't fucking hear it. Like their eyes just glaze over, their ears close up right as they go past it. It just never fucking impacts them. The words just poof, like they got this windshield that just blocks those fucking words from registering. It's fucking crazy. I don't know how fragile your gay friends could be. I mean, anybody who takes a load of pipe to the ass can't be that fragile. I would be crying like a little sissy if someone pounded on my asshole. I'm just saying. So, I mean, how fragile can they be? You know, you don't have to go into detail about that, by the way. You don't have to go into detail about that. But if you do want to go into detail about it, talk slow and use lots of descriptive words. But these words mean something, and they mean something very specific. It is so easy to strip someone of the ability to film simply by having authorized personnel, whoever the fuck it is, say you can't film here. And when we watch the video, because they're going to play it again, when we watch the video, see if she tells him he can't film there.
So that's the
Poster 7.
Yeah, so that's the Poster 7. And so that is, so when you walk in as an American citizen and you see that, that's their way of notifying you that this facility is governed exclusively under federal law. Their government is giving you notice of that. Now, if they weren't.
Well, so it doesn't say that it's being governed exclusively under federal law, because it says specifically that nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state or local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. So it literally is saying exactly the fucking opposite of what Ehline said. It is saying the exact fucking opposite. It's saying that state and local rules apply here unless otherwise noted. The exact opposite.
They would have a sign up saying that this facility is governed under, interagency agreement or local trespass law will apply. And I challenge any.
It says it. It fucking says it, dude. It fucking says it. It says it right here. Right here. Fucking nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state or local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. It literally fucking says it. Like, this isn't hard. Just fucking read the statute. Read the poster. Read something. Read my goddamn mind. I don't know.
Anybody on the planet to show me that. BZ, maybe you should do some more public records requests. I seriously doubt that there's anything out there that would indicate that that's ever even happened in the history of the U.S. Post Office.
Oh, I
Code of federal regulations exclusively governs the post office. Go ahead.
I just thought off a bunch more, and I was driving around today, and I was thinking about how many more I could do. So I'm going to bombard the. I've actually made post office my mission, bro. I mean, I've got a few other little operations and missions.
I made it my mission. Oh God, thank God. Thank God BZ Watchdog is going to protect us from this terrible post office.
That I'm focused on, but the post office is like my crusade.
Well, it's good. It's good that you're learning the law, and it's good that you're learning how to do discovery. And public records requests are tricky because typically we get hit all the time that they're overly broad. So what I like to do is drill down, take that information, drill down. It might take you a year to get the information that you want, but if you're good at it, man, it's a great business. You can hold the government accountable, and that's the best business there is. Watch this bad chicken.
I mean, I was only there like 2 minutes when this happens.
What's the purpose of what? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear
Why are you in here just randomly recording? Is there a purpose?
There is a purpose.
Okay, you don't want to be recorded, so is there?
Yeah, but she's a public servant.
This is the mandatory stand-up talk memo that was issued to all.
And she's a public servant. You know, I
Well,
get it.
well, here's the thing. She asked if I had a purpose. I answered the question. Yes, I have a purpose. If you notice, she never asked me what that purpose was.
Right.
If she would have asked me, I could have.
Poster 7 is a poster. Poster 7 is a poster. The actual code section is 39 CFR 232.1, something like H5 little I. It's a law. It's a law. Regulations are laws.
Probably dispelled it or explained it a little bit more. But did you see what her answer was? I don't want to be filmed. Well,
Right. So now just for the audience in the sidebar, like, hey, Presser Franker, good seeing anybody. James Forbes, the supermodel, looking good. So to give context to what we're doing here, as a lawyer, when we build evidence, you know, you can use direct and indirect evidence to build a case. So you could basically, you don't have to have direct evidence to prove a theory. And in this case, the theory that local police don't have the authority to come on postal property and make arrests when federal law supersedes it all is buttressed by this memo right here that BZ was able to get through a public record.
No, it's not, because actual statutes lay the foundation. Actual statutes. Cases. So when you're looking at the value of so this isn't evidence. This is law. This is law, right? A judge will determine whether or not a state has jurisdiction to enforce its laws, or whether the federal government has jurisdiction to enforce its laws on a particular piece of federal property. So it is a question of law. And so what you would do is you would look at the state of the law. And when you're interpreting the law, the first thing you look at is cases. So if you prepare a memorandum of points and authorities with citations to authorities, the top thing, the number one thing that you put down is citations to cases, because cases interpret the law. And so you cite to those cases to show how the law was interpreted. The next thing you cite to is the Constitution, if applicable, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Cases come first because they're interpreting. Then you go to the Constitution. Then you go to statutes. Then you go to regulations. Then you go down to like learned treatises, like civil practice before trial or whatever. That's the order you go in. So he's thinking that this is an evidentiary issue, and it's not. If the even under his interpretation, his wrong interpretation, it would be a question, a judicial notice. The government or the judge would take judicial notice of the statutes and the law of statutes and case law, right? If it is as I think it is, where the federal government has to, at least since 1940, anything acquired after 1940, they have to basically send a notice so that they're accepting exclusive jurisdiction. The court again would take notice of that acceptance of jurisdiction. Judicial notice. It's not, you don't have to fucking beat around the bush. It's a straightforward thing. That's why when we were going through here, we were looking at some of these FOIA requests that have been made, where they FOIA requested these acceptance of jurisdiction from the GSA. They said, "Hey, GSA, has the federal government accepted exclusive jurisdiction over this specific property?" And they would just show that. They'd show it to the court. They'd be like, "Court, we want you to take judicial notice of this. You don't have to beat around the bush." But this memo is just a memo. It might have some value for some things, but it's not, it in and of itself is not going to show anything about whether or not the a state has jurisdiction to enforce its laws, or whether the USPS has jurisdiction to enforce its laws. Could a federal officer charge these guys after they post their video on YouTube? Well, so yeah. I mean, there's probably a statute of limitations. I don't really care to look it up, but sure. But the question becomes, would they? You got to remember that the maximum fine is like, what, a $500 fine or a $50 fine or some piddly ass shit, 30 days, up to 30 days. Is it worth their time and money? Is it worth the post office to spend the time and money to send out a postal inspector to do it? The answer to that is no. And so they're not going to. So I wouldn't bet on it. Now, if they get out of hand, maybe. Well, if I'm not entertaining, why don't you just fucking leave? Like, I'm not asking you to be here. I didn't invite you here. You came on your own volition. You could leave on your own volition.
Records request. So you can use this evidence to show, there's a whole bunch of evidence showing that this is exclusively federal law, including the direct evidence in the Code of Federal Regulations itself, but in the way that they respond to public.
Well, the direct evidence in the Code of Federal Regulations itself, you mean the one where it says that nothing in this shall abrogate. There we go. Under P. Nothing contained in these rules and regulations shall be construed to abrogate any other federal laws or regulations or any state and local laws and regulations applicable to any area in which the property is situated. So again, Michael Ehline is ignoring the very regulations that he is citing to. It doesn't cost the taxpayers. You have to remember that the U.S. Postal Service inspectors, USPIS, those guys are paid by the post office. So it comes off the post office's operating budget, not the taxpayer. So what does that mean, Ehline? What does it mean? Auditors go on and on about how policy isn't law, and they're right. Policy instructs employees how to do things, right? And an employee can violate policy, and that doesn't necessarily give you a cause of action. You'd be like, hey, the policy says the employee has to do X, Y, and Z. Great. And you say, well, but the employee didn't do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to sue you for it. No, you're not. It's an internal thing. It's how they deal with their employees.
A long way to show negligence. Their own policy says basically leave these guys alone and don't do anything to them. Don't talk to them.
That is correct.
All right. They're lucky they're in business at all. They lose billions of dollars every year.
6.5 billion.
And like 40% of the country thinks that they're involved in voter fraud.
That's from my boy Rick Jones. He told me I needed more cowbells.
That's great.
Didn't get the memo.
So she asks him to stop recording. Let me check poster 7. We're going to check to poster 7, and we're going to scroll up a little bit, and we're going to go over a little bit. Except we're prohibited by authorized personnel. So right there, it just became a violation because he's now recording when it's been prohibited by authorized personnel. And so now she is going to trespass him. Well, I mean, it depends. If there's a departmental policy against excessive force, then you could sue them for excessive force, but you wouldn't sue them for violating the policy. You'd sue them for excessive force. So she trespassed him, and now she's calling the police. Okay. Nope. How are you holding her accountable? Yeah, it's fucking terrible. They are not making any money that I can see. Why? Shit. I wasn't playing any of that. Why did they disable chat? Why did you guys disable chat? That doesn't seem very nice. They disabled chat.
It's bad. I know their protocols, and they don't.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Most government agencies and employees, they're not used or accustomed to being held accountable by the citizenry. And they could argue this is not a public forum. They could try to argue that, but
You know what's funny is they always say it's a government building.
It is not a public forum. They don't have to argue it because US v. Kakinda held it's not a public forum.
It's a federal building.
but they've got to not only argue that, they also have to enforce the federal law properly by use of a federal police officer, in order to do this properly, and then we can challenge it.
So
Right now, what will happen?
Get her good side for YouTube. So
Well, like a lot of people are interested. At least you got like 700-800 people in here watching this.
by the way, North Richland Hills, Texas, guys, just let you know how dumb they are up there.
I was checking out their Yelp reviews. I just looked. Every other one is like the employees have an attitude problem. They're total jerks. They're loud. They're obnoxious. They ignore you.
No, not there.
I couldn't
Show
believe
me,
it.
as Chili says, show me the video.
Oh, right. Always film.
Hold your government accountable.
How is this holding anybody
Bill Clinton wants you to run
accountable
for
again?
president, DZ. Says you got his vote.
Nah, I got too many skeletons in the closet, man. So I don't let you guys.
Well, I'm pretty much over it. I'm done. This is stupid. I have made my point, I think. If I haven't made my point, well then, I could tell you how it is. I can't understand it for you. I'm going to do other things now, more important things. Sorry. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.